Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all here for our regular meeting of Committee of the Whole for February of 2020. Before we get going with our proper agenda, I'd like to turn the floor over to Councillor MacDonald, who has some very positive news from the area of Middleton.
You know how I get sometimes. I may choke up during this, but there were moments in the last 10 days when I did choke up. I spent 8 nights with my basketball team at the Coal Bowl in New Waterford, Cape Breton Island, with teams from Alberta, the City of Toronto, Quebec City, PEI, and 4 of us from Nova Scotia. By far, Middleton's smallest school. We won 1 game. Our first game, we lost by 2. Okay, we learned a lot. We're used to playing, we thought, at a high level of basketball until you go there. Game 2, we lost by 10, and we put our heads together and said, we got to change this up. Game 3, Quebec City, big city school. Wow. We won by 17. We made our tweaks, we made our changes. What a positive thing that was for that group of boys. And anybody we play from around here from now on is going to, they may get stung. But that was only 2 hours a day, sir. I was up at 6 and I didn't get to bed till midnight every day, and we were busy every minute. We toured the Coal Miners Museum, and if anything is going to encourage a young man to stay in school, stooping around in those tunnels will.
That's right.
We toured Lingen Power Station, which powers almost the entire province when there's no wind, okay, with coal. Amazing. We toured the Coast Guard College. Didn't even know it existed. For anybody looking for a direction, it's a 4-year program. You come out as an engineer. They pay for everything. Give you $350 a month. You stay there, and you come out making $60 grand a year, a month on, month off, and a month annual vacation a year. So you can put 3 months in a row of time off. I asked, is 64 too old? I think it is. I think it is. We did many other things. We sang with Miners of the Deeps.
Wow.
What a powerful moment. We rehearsed it. Some people here watched it. We rehearsed it 6 or 7 times and went live. I had tears in my eyes. It was powerful. We did so many other things and met friends from across the country. I've been coaching boys basketball for around 32 years from Victoria to Yarmouth. And this is the #1 tournament I've ever been to, bar none.
Fantastic.
Well done, New Waterford, I'll tell you.
On behalf of the entire municipality of the County of Annapolis, I want to extend warm congratulations to the players and the families of the Middleton boys basketball team. It's such an honor to even be selected to go to attend this event in the first place, and we are extremely proud of what they've accomplished there.
Well, I am too, sir. They did very well.
With that, we'll start the formal portion of our meeting. Start off with our roll call. I'll call out the district numbers and ask you to state your names. District 1.
Bruce Perry.
Thank you. District 2.
John McDonald.
District 3.
Wayne Fowler.
District 4.
Herbert Neal.
District 5.
Gregory Hemming.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
I'm District 7, Timothy Hibinsky. District 8.
Michael Dunn.
District 9.
I'm Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Martha Roberts.
And District 11.
Diana Blanc. We're all present.
Thank you so much.
Yes, teacher.
I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Henning. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. You have before you the minutes for our January the 14th meeting. Moved to receive by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Any errors or omissions that you have noted in those minutes? I'll give you just a moment. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have a matter to deal with in camera under the MJ Section 22.2a, acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property. I request a motion to go in camera under that section. Moved by Councillor Henning, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of our visitors and call our meeting of the whole back to order. We have 4 presentations today, which is terrific, and I'm delighted to welcome Katie McLean on behalf of the Clean Annapolis River Project at Clean Sisters.
Thank you. So, does this actually work? Is it on?
Yes, it's for recording purposes.
Just for recording. Okay, great. And I have to apologize in advance. I'm getting over a cold, so if I'm a little murmury, then just yell at me to speak louder or more clearly. And I don't have slides today, so in advance we'd circulated a letter as well as the results from water quality, which were more for reference and to understand a bit about what the program I'm going to talk about is about, but no slides for today. At the end I do have a few printed materials I can leave if people are interested, even if people in the audience are interested. So thank you everyone for having me here today. My name's Katie McLean and I'm here on behalf of Clean Annapolis River Project. Just in case anyone was unaware, we're an environmental nonprofit organization. We've been operating since 1990, and we're really directed by our mandate, which is to enhance the ecological health of the Annapolis River watershed for current and future generations through science, leadership, and community engagement. So CARP has a long history in this area. We're now moving into our 30th year of operations, and our longest running program is Annapolis River Guardians. So in 1992, there was a group of community members who had the foresight to start a long-term water quality monitoring program for the Annapolis River. At the time, I believe it started with 40 sites. Over the years, council knows, as any community organization members here know, we're kind of at the whim of different funding directions and strategies, and monitoring programs are no longer sexy. They're not an attractive thing to fund. It has become almost impossible to fund them. So we've done everything possible to streamline what the budget is to continue Annapolis River Guardians. And to be quite frank, I'm here today to kind of do a follow-up to last year, which is to make a request to consider funding which would help to underwrite those essential costs to continue the Annapolis River Guardians program. So you'll see in the letter that I provided that we've taken out human resources costs because we can put this on the side of the desk of one of our existing staff, and that's one of the ways we're able to keep this going. The bulk of the costs go to lab fees to cover E. coli analysis, and that happens at 8 sites across the Annapolis River, and it happens for about 13 sampling events between April and October of each year. So it's bi-weekly sampling on same sites, same time of the day each sampling, just to try and control for different variables. We also include quality control samples so we can test for things like contamination issues if there was staph contamination. So that's part of those costs, and it's the majority of them. We are also, as part of that, requesting funding that would cover the mileage so that we could have a staff person visit those sites. In the past, this was a great program because it relied on trained citizen science monitors who went out and were able to collect samples. I think it was 1 p.m. every Sunday. It actually has more cost to run the program when you run it as a volunteer program because of the training, the additional quality assurance steps that go into it. So we were able to streamline the project by having a staff person become responsible for that. Sorry. And then you'll also see for this year, we have included production of new signs. A lot of you might be familiar that in the past there would have been large signs at each of the sampling sites. So those are at bridges that cross the Annapolis River. And that's an incredibly important component of the project because that is one of the direct ways to communicate results back to the community. And so they report on E. coli results based on the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment water quality standards for we look at 4 different things. So safe recreational use, safe use for crop irrigation, safe use for watering livestock, and the kind of the generally, like the ideal under 50 colonies. per unit is safe for any use, recreation, through different agricultural purposes. So those signs have deteriorated over time. That's just how it works with wood products. And so we really want to see new signs. We've refreshed the design. That design, I think, would have been shared last year by Levi when he came to present to council, and I have copies of that here. And it also gives an opportunity if there is funding from Annapolis County, that we can recognize that through signage. We can include that in sign design. So, of course, like, we're used to working with funders, and it is incredibly important to recognize where our support comes from. So they're pretty basic costs. The total request that we're making for this year is about $8,600 and change. I think it's $86.01 if you want to go right to the penny, which may not even exist if we use digital formats. But like, really the plea is that we're in a very fortunate position. We have a long-term record of water quality. We have continuing issues with water quality in this area, and that comes from a number of different uses. It's people and wastewater treatment plants, it's septic systems, it's agriculture. There's no one culprit or one person to point the finger at. But what we really don't want to see is gaps in this data, because that really starts to erode from the utility of it. So I think with that, it's probably best to leave it with questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Katie. Do you know why less than half of the length of the river in Annapolis County is tested? Why is there a scientific reason for starting at Bridgetown?
Well, so tidal influence is a major factor, but also safe access. So especially where this was designed as a citizen science program, we had to make sure that people going out and collecting samples, and really even our staff have a safe and accessible place to collect that sample. And so we do it from a center point in the river, because at your banks you can have differences in dissolved oxygen just because of the way water flows. So you'll see there are sites with bridges, and we don't have a lot of bridges between Bridgetown and Annapolis, all by the causeway. So that's the main reason. It's not a scientific reason. In actually the 2017 report cards I have, you'll see we did a separate program that focused on nutrient analysis in the estuary system, and those samples were collected by boat. So a lot of it has to do with like the human considerations and logistics.
Thank you. It seems to me, though, that if you're saying that the water from Bridgetown up or down, I never get it straight, is safe, but we don't know from Bridgetown to the gut.
Oh yeah, like I would never disagree. There's opportunity to add more sampling. So what we have right now and what we want to continue is basically the skeleton of a program. Like I said before, there used to be 40 sites, but if you can imagine, it costs $40 per E. coli sample times 13 weeks. The more sites you add, it just increases and increases that operating cost for the program.
Thank you. Good cause.
Thank you. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. Katie, do you guys measure this, I'd like to call it septic field saturation points in the river? Because is there anybody that does that? Because I'm very curious as to what the septic systems, if there is such a thing as saturation point for ground around different areas. Because it seems to me in a lot of areas around our watershed areas, there's a lot of septic systems in place.
There is a lot of septic systems. I don't know that anyone who's doing that research and monitoring. We used to be involved in a program that really focused on helping homeowners conduct regular maintenance of septic systems to avoid potential issues like having excess nutrient contribution. But when the province pulled funding on that, we were unable to continue it. So it provided rebates for pump outs and maintenance. But it's a huge need, and we continue to hear that and communicate that to Nova Scotia Environment, that was an important program, because septic systems are a reality in our area. And probably, especially when you look at take smaller lake systems where you have a lot of cottages with septic systems, and we're noticing algae blooms now that we have hotter summer temperatures. There's a direct relation. relationship. Maybe no one's done the sampling to empirically demonstrate it, but it's not a coincidence.
Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Yeah, of course, you know, I strongly support what you're doing. I mean, this is a service that the county should do, and we're doing it for you, and at a cost that probably better than what we could do it ourselves. And I thank you for tying this to our economic development strategy 2050. And you're absolutely right to remediate, manage, and ensure clean water. That's one of our targets, because I think we found out that there's no better economic development driver than clean water. So this is very helpful, and I strongly support what you're doing.
Further comments or questions? Councillor McDonald?
And I may have missed it. Have you applied to our grant process, or is this an ask right now?
So this is an ask right now. We have applied for other various things. So I think we're actually at the point, because there's limitations on how many grants you can apply to over recurring years, that we're probably actually not eligible for that. But for this specific program, we've not applied in a formal grant to Annapolis County. Last year, Levi would have made a similar presentation in response to the request for input on the operating and capital budget. So that's kind of the tact that over the past couple of years we've taken with Annapolis specifically.
So, and I'm not saying yes, no, or anything, but we're almost at the end of our fiscal year. Some pots are dry, right, or approaching dry, and some of us are not fans of digging into reserves for things, right?
Yes.
Because it's really important. I pay taxes too. So if this dragged on to beyond spring, is that okay?
Yeah, so this request is for the 2020 sampling season, so for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. We also run on the government fiscal year, so we're in the same position where we're closing out projects now and looking forward to the coming year.
Okay. So is this a topic, sir, where we would discuss later?
We usually discuss what we're going to do with the presentation afterwards. That's correct.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It's good.
Thank you.
That you do.
Thank you so much for your presentation. John, do you want to get to?
Well, just so people understand the process, council's not really, they're not supposed to make a decision immediately after a presentation. They're supposed to give it some sober second thought. I think what council can do is make a recommendation to consider it at your council meeting. And if you want to discuss it further now, that's fine, but you can discuss it again next week in Ingles.
Or add it to the agenda.
Very good. Thanks.
So maybe, I'm not sure who to leave these with, but for one, you revisit any thought that just gives some more background on the program, and it's all materials you've probably seen before from us. But
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. And incidentally, thank you also for a number that does come down to the Deputy Warden?
So I will make a motion to add it to the late editions of today's agenda.
Second it.
Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Our next presentation, Joyce Dalshinoff from Mountains and Meadows. We're delighted to have you here. And Nancy McGrath, the chair of the board. Also delighted to have you here.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. As somebody said, I'm Nancy McGrath, chair of the board at Mountains and Meadows Care Group. As Steve McNeil has said more than once, the introduction should be shorter than the presentation. So, great leaders are not the best at everything. They find people who are the best at different things and get them all on the same team. Our exceptional leader, Joyce Dalshinoff, will tell you about our many accomplishments.
Thank you. I just want to thank Council once again this year for allowing me time on the agenda. We've had another great year, and I'll go through just quickly and then accept any questions at the end. We continue to strive to be a center of excellence in aging and lifelong health for our residents at Mountain Lee Lodge. At the Meadows community, we continue to support persons with disabilities while trying to reintegrate them in the community. And we have many success stories around that. We continue to work with our partners, the Department of Health and the Department of Community Services, and you'll have many examples in this book that we just circulated around that. We've been part of the steering committee around transformation, moving people with disabilities to community placements, building small options home. We've also been very involved with the Department of Health around pressure injury reduction, and many other initiatives that government have led. So I'm in Halifax almost every week, sitting on different committees and trying to be a leader in the sector. Our vision continues to be, we want to be the home of choice and a vibrant presence within the community. Our values, caring, quality, respect, ethics, and safety was added. We have 4 strategic directions, improve the lives of our residents. We have many examples of that. We survey our residents every year. We have a benchmark on all the quality indicators to reach 85%, and we surpass those every year. Provide upgrades to our buildings. You will hear a lot about that. This past year, we have actually are close to $1 million just at Mountain Lee Lodge in facility upgrades. Achieve accreditation status. We've done that. And strengthen our community collaboration and partnership, which is why I'm here. We have a governance board. We have a quality committee of the board where this committee hears of all the quality initiatives that the wonderful leadership team along with staff are moving forward. We have a risk audit and finance committee where there's oversights on the financial pieces and all risk which are reported to that committee. So the board is well informed. We have a wonderful leadership team and senior management team, and we're in the middle of a winter carnival, and they all came to work with pajamas today because it's pajama day, but I told them I think they should change to come meet with the council.
You could all done.
Yeah.
We didn't know.
We have a wonderful medical director, Dr. Grant Goodine, who's retired but is staying with us, providing exceptional care to all our residents and clients. We have a very active Family and Friends Council. This year, they received a federal grant from Minister Tassi. She was the Minister of Seniors, Federal Minister of Seniors, and they got a federal grant, and they were able to do 3 videos just educating families on as to what it means to bring a loved one into care. And they were shared many times and throughout the province and beyond. Our community partners, we have a dentist on site a couple times a month. We have a podiatrist. We have preventative maintenance with the clinical engineer partners, pharmacy, and so on. Then recreation is the foundation of everything we do. We probably have one of the best recreation programs in this province, and I'm not shy to say that. There are lots of activities. We have wonderful staff. They work 7 days a week, evenings, holidays, and they work very hard to provide meaningful activities to our residents. We have cats on site, 2 cats. We have mechanical cats. We have mechanical dogs. Name it, we have it. The nursing program at Mountain Lee Lodge, we've had, as I had shared with you guys last year, quite a few international nurses. What these nurses are doing, they're mostly all from India. They're doing some upgrades to their education. So we just had one of our LPNs become an RN, and he has a home in Bridgetown, and he just helped us recruit another CCA from India as well, who is an RN in India, so he'll probably upgrade. And we also had a CCA from India achieve their LPN status, so they're really eager to get their education. We continue to hire. We have an exception to hire of 7 individuals that are going through the CCA program on site, and Patches kind of oversees that program. So we provide mentorship, education. They're being paid while they do this education, so it's wonderful. We've also added what we call long-term care assistance to our circle of care. So these individuals have to have a grade 12, and they can do certain things within the circle of care. So they can make beds, they can have feed, they can, all those things. So we have a few of those. We're actually hiring some more. The biggest challenging facing the sector right now, and I don't want to panic people, but I hear at many tables the crisis is the lack of staffing. For whatever reason, these jobs are not, appealing to the younger generation anymore. They want to go to VON, or they want to go to, home care or whatever. There's challenges everywhere, and really we want to be able to stand apart from everybody else so we can recruit staff. So we're always working hard. Debbie Gable, my director, and Chastity Chu at the Meadows are always working very hard to recruit well competent staff, because sometimes there is staff out there, but sometimes we just want to make sure we get the best staff. The business office, as you can see in the booklet, we've had a very good year this year. Where success is all around. Capital projects, we just got, and this booklet was made for October, so it's a little bit outdated, but $500,000 for an upgrade to the boiler room at Mountain Lee Lodge. We had 10 ceiling lifts. We had issues with the pipes. All the pipes have been changed under the dining, the kitchen area. And Kelly, my director of support services, is here. They had to move the kitchen off-site for a week to get all those upgrades done. And Jerry, the maintenance manager, with his dedicated staff, it was quite a project, but it got done. We also had to do some work with the pipes under Gala Lane, and that was also done. So big projects and lots of funding. The department has been very, very generous to us. At the Meadows community, we've put in heat pumps, we've done the roof, we've on and on and on. Support services, Kelly and her team, always looking at ways for improving what we do. We always say we want to be better tomorrow than we are today. So she started what we call Menu Guru. She brings in residents, what do you like in the menu, what don't you like, and we make improvements from there. There was a big upgrade to our laundry room as well. We have trained an infection control practitioner. Again, that's Patches DeRoche. She went through her education and is now a novice and a very valuable person on our team. So there was a workflow study done in the laundry room, and we needed to do some upgrades, and that got done, again with funding. So we now have a beautiful, shiny laundry room at Mountain Lee Lodge. The Meadows community, again, just a lot of real innovative projects and ideas. We still have our community garden. That is something we will continue to do. Our residents at both facilities just love seeing things grow and blossom in the summer. We have the apartments. So what we do at the Meadows community, we'll transition residents with time to a Willowvale apartments as we teach them life skills so they can be prepared to move into the community. And we've had lots of successes with that. We also have an adult protection respite bed at the Meadows community. And even though we are licensed for 33 residents, we usually have 34. They use our AP bed a lot, and we end up falling in love with the client, and then we want to keep them. So that happens all the time. Very, very busy. We have, parties. We have a variety show every year. We went in the boat races, dragon boat races, and had a blast. Even I did that. So on the DCS side, we want our clients with disabilities to reach their fullest potential to live their best lives. And that is something that we strive for. We're out in the community trying to inform and educate people that even though people with a disability, may not be living in the community, they have the same rights as we all do. And we see ourselves very much as advocates. So I commend my team for always putting our residents and clients at the center. Maintenance staff have been so busy. They've been working around the clock, just trying to continue the upgrades on our buildings. This boiler room project is huge. There is a third party that is helping us with that because it can't be done overnight and can only be done in the summer months. So that's going to be a big project. We continue to strive to have an environment that is safe for both our staff and our clients. We have a safety officer. Everything we do, our safety walkabouts in the morning, is always looking through that safety lens. So if we hear that a piece of equipment's not working, we get it fixed. If we see a cord, on the floor, we pick it up. Our staff know that we come around every day, and they come to us now with ideas, and we are being seen as leaders just because of that little walkabout in the morning. We also talk to our residents, make sure their care is accurate and we're meeting their expectations. We have a big pool of volunteers, 61 in the organization, and we continue to recruit. We couldn't do this without our dedicated volunteers. I always say we're a community within a community, and on any given day, we're the hub. We are the hub. If you can come and find a parking space, you're very lucky, because usually the parking lot is full, and we would welcome any of you to come visit anytime. Our clients are in the Special Olympics and so proud of their medals. We have two staff groups that plan staff activities, the Busy Bees of Mountain Lodge and the Monarchs at the Meadows. So we have dances. We have a winter carnival this week. We have lots of fun. And a big surprise on Friday, but I won't out it yet. I always say our staff is our biggest asset. We have the most dedicated staff. Even people who leave to go to a brighter place come back. I don't think people always realize what they have within Mountains and Meadows Care Group. Is it perfect? No. I don't think there's any place that's perfect. But we are a family. We will all pull together for any employee, and I see that on a daily basis. Again, this year, a couple achievements. So again, Patches de Rocher is working very, very hard on meeting accreditation standards and in the infection control world. There are many, many things that need to be done, and we're well underway. So urinary tract infections, there's an initiative now that our residents every day get a big cup with a straw to drink water. That's something we've heard from them. We don't get enough water, and we all know dehydration is one of the biggest plague in long-term care. So Kelly, under support programs with her staff, has implemented that. We nominated Linda Bailey for a Nurse Excellence Award in Administration. And guess what? She got it. After 50 years of working very hard. And by the way, Linda retired, but she's back. She's working a day a week, and she's very happy. There was a lot of tears shed when Linda left. And Linda herself, this has been her life for over 50 years. So she's helping us with the recruitment, retention, and the humor in the workplace. Volunteers, we always have a volunteer recreation or dinner for our volunteers. So we have a big meal, and that our own staff prepare that. We'll do it again this year. We've had a variety show. Again, the dragon boat races. This year, we applied for a grant to do a summer youth day program under Chastity's leadership at the Meadows community. So we all know that there's adults with disabilities, but there's also children in the school systems with disabilities. And what happens when school is out and the parents are working? So we put in a proposal and we got funding, and we had the best summer. We had 5 participants, and our older clients at the Meadows and our younger clients through this day program had a lot of fun. Did not cost them anything. We funded everything through the grant, and the testimonies from the participants themselves and the families were amazing. And this is something that we want to do again, up to including doing respite care on the weekends and maybe during Christmas vacation. We have the Wharf Rally Bikers visit. Our residents have lots of fun taking rides in the bikes. We went in the Cider Fest parade, and we won Judge's Choice, so we got $100, and we always have a big pizza party. Accreditation. We went through the 18 months primer process, and we did very well. We met 95.6% of the 89 standards that were surveyed. And we were asked many questions. The families were interviewed, the staff were interviewed. They met with 35 staff. And so now we get to put a great big accreditation logo on our signatures. So there aren't many facilities that are accredited. This is a third party that comes in. We had a surveyor from Newfoundland. We had a surveyor from Winnipeg. They came in, they surveyed. They've been surveying for a long time with Accreditation Canada, and they went through all our process and quality initiatives. So I can tell you, I have evidence that Mountains and Meadows Care Group has a foundation of quality. It's just not hearsay. We've got the big posters on every wall to remind people, and it was a lot of work. And they went through everything. Are you client-centered, medication management, policy frameworks, all that stuff. They all went through everything. So we did a lot of work, and we did it. So off to what we call Qmentum, which is even a bigger survey. And we're just starting that work now. We had some retirements, and we had a lot of new people join the team. Pam Robichaud is the Assistant Director of Resident Care, and yes, Pam is from Clare. So Pam and I had worked in Yarmouth, and Debbie Gable, the Director of Resident Care. Debbie was also recruited back to Mountains and Meadows. Tammy Havinga is now in a different position, Assistant Director. So the other piece of news is that the Minister of Community Services appointed the leadership of Harborside Lodge in Yarmouth under the umbrella of Mountains and Meadows Care Group. Harborside Lodge has had a rocky past, I will say. There hasn't been a lot of consistency with administrators. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And because of the track record of the wonderful board that I report to and the leadership team, the department made the decision that Harborside Lodge is now part of Mountains and Meadows Care Group. And that's for a one-year term. We didn't want to say yes forever because it's an additional workload for all of us. Having said that, we've gotten some additional resources to help with that. And we've already done, since October 26th, a lot of work. I just want to close by saying I thank you all so much. This is not a one-man team. I am the leader, and I've got a wonderful leadership. There is not one person, as you can see today. They've all come here to support this discussion. The team that I have the privilege of leading is the best team I've ever worked with. And I just want to thank them for everything, and the board for being here as well.
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you so much. Listen, that's a beautiful picture you painted the place up there, and it is a lovely facility. You guys really do a great job. But I have a question.
Yeah.
And it's about municipal housing. And I'm not sure if Mountains and Meadows is part of the municipal housing unit that we have in the province. And if it is, my question would lead to housing that is outside of Mountains and Meadows, and who perhaps looks after, which part of the government even looks after that municipal housing piece.
So Housing Nova Scotia, Crosskill Court, that's attached to Mountain Lee Lodge, would fall under that umbrella. So I speak very regularly with the Deputy Minister, Nancy McLaughlin. She used to be at DCS and just got appointed as DM at the, Housing Nova Scotia. There is a big job ahead of Nancy with the whole housing piece and figuring out. We've already spoken a few times because I had a few ideas I wanted to share with her. So Crosskill Court is an assisted living housing unit. There's 27 tenants there, and we provide outreach. Having said that, there needs to be more housing buildings built. And I think they're looking at a housing strategy.
Well, they need to do something about what they have now, and this is who I would like to find out who's behind that.
Yeah, I can certainly send you Nancy's contact, because I know even us with Crosskill Court, there are some facility issues, and we've been talking to Nancy about that, like during one of the hurricanes, the place flooded. And, with the roof's just been shingled 2 years ago, but all the shingles came off, and there was 27 vulnerable people. So I get what you're saying, and I'm certainly trying to advocate for Crosskill Court anyway, because the whole housing piece is a big piece, and affordable housing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions or comments? Thank you both very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Our next presentation is from Sean Duff on the Bridgetown Criterion. Very eager to hear about this.
Yes, it's Piper.
Welcome.
Good morning, Council. I do have images, so it's coming up. Okay.
Yeah, you'll have to click on your presentation there, yeah. And that MP4 should play when you click on it, yeah.
Okay. Bridgetown Criterium. Criterium is a bicycle race on a very short course. And what I'm here to present to you today is for your permission to operate on the streets of Bridgetown. I'm not looking for funding, so I just want to share some of the fun with our community in this municipality. So on Sunday, June 7th, we are planning this criterium. Now you all have the proposal with you, so I'll just, the next one. So I'll give a brief summary about the proposal, a little bit about the benefits to the community, and then a few examples of what racing dynamics is about. So let me begin with the background. I'll share the route of the race course and a point or two of the logistics of the bicycle race. Okay, first of all, my name is Sean, and I represent Rodents Competitive Cycling. I work with my wife, who manages the food and the children's activities at the races, and with my son, who is the technical developer of our software and our website, and that's him at the front on the left. We operate throughout the entire province. In fact, this year we will be in 12 of the 18 counties of Nova Scotia. We also do a race. We did one in 2016 up the hill to Valley View Provincial Park. We will be repeating that the same day, Sunday, June the 7th, here in Bridgetown. So when they're finished the criterium, they'll be on the road to to go up the hill. This is the route of the race course that I'm proposing. Is if you look on the upper right-hand corner of the southern part of Bridgetown, we'll start by the swimming pool. We'll go counterclockwise. We'll go down Washington Street, down to Riverview Drive, and up Rectory Street, and then back again. They will repeat this several times, anywhere from 8 to maybe 20 times, depending on their category. And what I'm asking is permission to manage traffic at the corners. Being that these cyclists operate in groups, there will be a minute or minute and a half gap between the time that the cyclists go around. So in that gap, we would like to allow the residents access to their houses to come in and out. It would be unfair for the residents in this neighborhood to have to sit inside their houses for 2 hours and they can't get out to go shopping, to go to church, or whatever it is they want to do on that day. So they go by, and then our marshals will control traffic so that it'll be safe for the cyclists and also convenient for the residents. Now, logistics is all about getting everybody working together so that there's no chaos on race day. Now, a lot of my images here are from the national park. I do have a criterium that I do in Keji Park, and you will see some of those pictures. I don't have anything for Bridgetown yet, but maybe next year I will have something after we do this here. Our center will be around the Bridgetown pool. Our marshals down at the corners and at the midpoints, and they will handle the traffic.
It's where the flags are, right?
Where the flags are in the corners, right. So whenever a marshal sees a resident wanting to leave, he will signal to the other through radio that there will be a vehicle on the roads. We wait till the cyclists go by, and the motorists can follow the cyclists out of the area, and be the same thing coming back in. I want to talk about a little of the benefits to the community. Tourism, recreation, and socializing. Tourism, we bring cyclists from all over, not only Nova Scotia, but also Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick. Their racing scene in those two provinces is not as complete as Nova Scotia's, and so they come to this province to race. And we generally see half a dozen to a dozen from those provinces at every one of our events. We bring them into whatever community we are in. Some spend the night because they travel a long ways. They stay at a bed and breakfast, or they stay at a motel. They visit the restaurants. They buy little souvenirs because they like to see different parts of the province. We also like to encourage recreation among the residents, starting with the kids, and even to the adults who are chasing the kids around the course. We also involved with socializing, not just among the cyclists, but getting the residents to interact with the cyclists themselves. We see at many of our events, they approach us. How much does this bike cost? How fast do you go? Don't you get tired? Things like that. And we share back and forth. Our cyclists like to know what our residents are doing. What do you do for a living? What do you like about your community? What does this mean? So we encourage a lot of socializing with the residents and with our own cyclists, and they do like to come back. Now, a little bit about race dynamics. Now, we're not talking about adults going around and around until they get dizzy and then they finish the race. There are very important aspects of a race that make it interesting once you understand what to look for. This is drafting. The one up front is expending all his energy. The ones behind him, from the third or fourth position beyond, they are conserving up to 1/3 of their energy, so they like to stay in small groups. And this is what makes it easier for the marshals at the corners, because he can pretty well be sure that these cyclists are going to be all together. If you get out by yourself, you'll never win, because you're expending all your energy and you can't catch up. Cornering. This is the obstacle that breaks up the group. And they like to go into the corner single file, so that this stretches that tiny little group into a long group as they try to get out of that corner. And so they will take a corner like this at 40 or 50 kilometers an hour. And then sprinting. Once you come out of a corner, They sprint really hard, create that gap so that the other ones behind them have to face the wind, and that tires them out. And they do this over and over and over until finally people start dropping off. They can't keep up. They leave the race, and you're left with maybe a handful at the end. Okay, so in conclusion, you have your proposal with all the details. I'm not going to go through all that. I don't need to repeat what's already in print. Benefits to the community, a little bit about racing in general. And I would like to play a clip here, 30-second clip, racing in action. Here's our drafting. They take the corner, and then they sprint. If you look down here, they're doing 40, 45, 50 kilometers an hour. And he's communicating. He doesn't want to crash going 50 kilometers an hour on the road.
That was a fun race.
And then they, after the race, they're all excited.
Was that the winner?
Actually, it was not. It was not, but he had fun anyway. So on Sunday, June the 7th, I'm proposing the bicycle race in town, and I would like your permission to be able to proceed with that. If you have any questions,
Questions from council. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Thanks, first of all, for the presentation. Thank you for not reading us through the pages, because what you provided is excellent. I have one question. You're going to organize 26 races across the province in 2020. What do you do in your spare time?
That is my spare time. All of it. During the week, I prepare for the races coming up on the following weekend. In fact, I take advantage of the entire winter, prepare all the documentation, so that during the week, during the summer, I don't have to have too much. But being that I work with my family, it's really not work.
Thank you.
Very nice. Councillor Henning.
I like this. Thank you very much. Racing like that is one of the few things grown men and women can wear Lycra for. And I was involved in a race, sanctioning a race as a time trial for the Tour de France.
Oh.
And I know it's quite expensive to do that. Have you ever done a sanctioned race?
Yes, with Bicycle Nova Scotia.
Okay.
I did last year the provincial championships for time trial and for road race in Clarks Harbor.
Great, okay. And I'm assuming you're taking into emergency access.
Yes, we do have emergency personnel. I'm actually negotiating with the fire department to handle the first aid. But when it comes to emergency access, our race stops.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, folks? Councillor McDonald.
So, I like the idea of the race in Ridgetown. I think it was very cool, and you're used to doing it. What happens? How do we get the word out to those residents? What happens there? Whose responsibility is that? How does that happen?
Okay, that's actually mine, unless you want to stop me. What I do is I prepare flyers and I go door to door. And I will inform them several weeks before the race itself, and I will leave the flyers in their door, but I would prefer to speak with them in person.
Very good. And paramedics or somebody, or EHS, somebody, you look after all that too?
I look after all that. They're all notified. The hospitals are notified. EHS, the police, the fire department, they're all notified beforehand.
Am I correct in assuming all you need for us to do is say, yes, we'd love to have it in our community, and the rest is pretty much handled?
And smile, and then I'll be very happy.
Thank you very much.
Further questions or comments, folks? Thank you very much for your presentation. This really checks off a lot of the boxes as far as I'm concerned, because we have an interest as a municipality in promoting healthy active transportation. We have an interest in promoting healthy physical activity. We have an interest in community development. And I know that in the last 2 years, while attending conferences for municipal government in different locations, I've twice been to workshops conducted specifically on how to leverage sports tourism to help your economic development as a municipality. And the figures are astonishing. It's widely regarded as one of the areas where you have the opportunity for the greatest the greatest growth with the least investment of all fields. This makes an enormous difference to municipalities. So not only do I hope this will be a successful event once council makes a decision, but perhaps it will be something that can be repeated on an annual basis. I love that too.
Could I have a question?
Oh, sorry.
So just for me to get it straight in my own head, this company that organizes these races is a private company?
Yes, it is.
And that's your company?
That's my company. Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden, did you have one question?
I would like to make a motion to add this to late editions of our agenda.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor McNeil. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. All right, now it's 5:02, but I'd like to continue with, we have one more presentation on the Soldiers Memorial Hospital Foundation Community Building. I'm not sure who we have to speak to this morning, but we're delighted to have you. Good morning.
It's almost too late to say good morning, but good morning. Having been on boards and councils like yours, I know that you can only absorb what the ass of your pants can handle, so I'm going to try and be as brief as possible. My name is Jim Mosier. I'm the chair of the Soldiers Memorial Hospital Foundation. The hospital is in Middleton, but it does a catchment population that goes all the way from Aylesford to somewhere in Granville, I would guess, and out to the mountain and out to the bay. So it's not a local thing. We've had very exciting news lately. Well, first I'll introduce Kelly Hutton, who's vice chair. Kelly does the buildings for the community colleges in the valley. And Leslie Tinkham, who is a professional fundraiser, whose advice we've been seeking because it's not something we've done an awful lot of. So Leslie is here, and since I'm an old guy and I don't know how to run these things, I'll get Leslie to do all that while I do what I do best, and that's talk. First of all, Warden Nebinski, thank you for entertaining us, and I recognize some of the faces around here, some I don't, and maybe it's good that they won't recognize me too. The Hospital Foundation at Soldiers was established back in the 1970s. Its purpose was primarily to look after whatever financial assets the hospital board, those days you had hospital boards, had, and to invest them and to use the profits for whatever equipment and building and so on that the hospital needed. It expanded since then to get involved in an awful lot of community projects. For example, we cooperate with the Annapolis West Health Foundation in sponsoring the Safe Seniors group in Annapolis County, and we also give some sponsorship in Kings County as well because our area takes that in. We're involved in a lot of the busing that goes on. We share some of that funding, and I won't go into a whole lot of them. I think we've spent probably $10 million in the last 5 or 10 years on things like that. The big problem that we all know we face lately, past lady referred to it with regard to staffing with us in this province lately. We have a dearth of family physicians. It's not an easy problem to solve. Budgets don't allow to spend an awful lot on them. And in our case, in Middleton and in that area, we have a dying building that houses the local doctors, and if you're trying to work out of a dying building, you're going to go to some other building, and that's simply the facts of life. We have difficulty attracting physicians. We never used to, but in the last few years, of course, we've got growing old like I've grown old, and they're retiring. And it used to be that a doctor coming fresh out of university would be very anxious to purchase the practice of a retiring doctor and move in, and lo and behold, he had it made, or she had it made. And that doesn't happen anymore. Doctors are looking to get into collaborative practices in groups where they can come in and have a turnkey operation. And so we've had some exciting news here in the Central Valley, in that after 20 years of begging and leveraging and I guess giving people hell from time to time, the provincial government has decided to build a new primary health care center for the Middleton area, which extends into the area that I described before. Kelly, you want to talk about the building a little bit, and then I'll come back on and say what we're here for. Always before, when I came here, and I've been here a couple times, I was able to preface my remarks by saying, don't worry, we're not looking for money. Worry.
Can you bring the pictures up?
Yes.
Yeah, so as Jim has spoken to there, you see on the screen right now, that is the medical clinic in Middleton that the doctors are working out of. It's in poor condition. It doesn't meet the needs of the community at all. And I guess everybody needs to understand that if we're going to, and we are in this battle to attract doctors, we need to have first-rate facilities that are well-equipped. That's the first step. And then when the doctors come down, which they are coming now to have a look, you know, we got the interns coming through, that is all that doctor recruitment thing is happening behind the scenes right now. But when they see this new facility, so I don't know if it's very clear to you there, it's not really, but anyway, the facility is coming out of the ground right now. So this is going to be a 12,000 square foot facility, right? It's big. It's got, I don't see the comments, but it's got, I believe, 24 different rooms in it. And so there's easily enough room there for a dozen doctors, which is considerably more than what we have right now in that old building, and other specialists to work within this collaborative space. And this is the model, of course, that Jim had mentioned earlier. This is the model the province has gone to. This is the model that doctors today want. They don't want to have 3,000 clients coming to their clinic. They want to go to work and do their work there. And this building will allow for all of that to happen. It will be heated and cooled by heat pumps. So originally when they brought the proposal to us 5 years ago, they were going to put in another boiler and oil tank because the hospital itself is maxed out. And we asked the question, why would we do that? Why wouldn't we try and move into the 21st century? If we're going to spend all this money, why don't we do that? And so lo and behold, when they came back, heat pumps, right? And so it's really good. Totally accessible, meets the provincial code for 2030. Now, right? So it's a great looking building. I've gone through the whole 308-page drawings of the building, and it's beautifully finished. It will attract doctors, and that really is our first step. So we have committed to funding this building to the tune of $1 million. This is the biggest commitment we've ever made for anything in all the years that we've been in business. Okay? So we really need that. I mean, when you have that in your community, you attract those doctors, it's an economic driver. Absolutely. Without that, you don't have an economic driver. If you don't have healthcare, decent healthcare in your community, right? And so this will not be a drop-in place. This will not be a place you just go to. You will go to see your doctor there, or your specialist. They'll have visiting specialists coming from either from Halifax, even from Valley Regional, who will come down there and work there, and so you won't have to make that long trip going into the city or into Kentville. So that's where we're at right now. The building, of course, is underway. We expect that it actually at least will be enclosed and functional by October, November. So they are going hard. They worked right through the Christmas break. They've been out there at nighttime in the mud, just going. And it is amazing how fast that thing's going up. So, there you go on the building. Okay. Thank you.
It's not a 7-day wonder like in Wuhan and China, but somewhat more quality than that. So the effort is doctor recruitment and retention. We have been involved in recruitment many years, but for this particular thing, we've sort of farmed out the recruitment bit to a committee of concerned citizens who's led by the CAO of the town of Middleton, and co-head of that committee is the deputy commander of Base Greenwood, because Base Greenwood, Kingston Greenwood area is a heavy part of our population, almost as big as Nectaw. But that's what we're into. We're emphasizing collaborative care, and Kelly mentioned that this could become a driver, and I do want to emphasize that, because we think that this isn't a field of dreams, and we don't expect shoeless Joe Jackson to arrive or anything like that, but we do think that we'll be a magnet not only for doctors and their services, but one of the big drawbacks lately has been that people say, well, why would we want to go to that area of the valley? Because the health service, it's not good. The doctors are all retiring, and we won't be able to get a family doctor. And you scratch any of your neighbors, and you know that about a quarter of them all don't have a family physician or a nurse practitioner or whatever. And we've got to correct that. If we do, we think people will come to the area, not just the doctors, but regular people, and businesses will come to the area. And I hate to mention taxes, but it could be a tax draw too that comes along. So I think we've said what we want to say, except that we're looking for money. We'd like to ask you if we can pledge this money over a period of 3 years to 5 at most. We think we'd like to ask for $50,000, but we'll ask for what you can bear, because we know that municipal councils are strapped, and we've had a sample of people here this morning presenting, so we know what kind of competition there is for this. So I think I'll stop gabbing and ask for questions.
Councilor Morrison.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. And with regard to your last few sentences, don't be shy in what you ask for. Ask for what you think we can give as one of the...
Well, I have no idea what you can give. We'd like to have $50,000 if you can spare it. If you want to give us $500,000, we'd be happy.
My understanding is that this foundation serves, or is designed to serve, or the new building, from Greenwood to Middleton.
No, we serve a catchment population that goes from somewhere our side of Aylesford in Kings County to just short of Annapolis. We know you have a wonderful community health center here.
Just short of Annapolis Royal.
Annapolis Royal, yes, that's what I mean.
So the people now from Bridgetown who come to Annapolis Royal will be told they go to Middleton?
We won't tell them anything. One of the things I forgot to say about our foundation is we have absolutely no authority over what goes on. If we spend some money, we do have some influence, but the Provincial Health Authority Board and the Department of Health make all those determinations.
I really do just want to say I'm the chair of the county physician retention and recruitment committee, which we've just established. But I was told by somebody who is familiar with the work of your foundation that the catchment area ends at the western end of Middleton, so it would be good to ensure that what you said is what's sent out. Thank you.
Well, if I might, catchment areas are nebulous. There are no particular boundaries. Certainly, we come beyond Bridgetown, but Bridgetown is shared, as you say. There are some who come to Annapolis Royal, some who come to Middleton, And we will continue to share. Our relationship with the Annapolis Foundation has been great. We share a lot of projects with them.
Thank you very much.
And we're not looking to make this center in Middleton the only place where doctors will be. As you know, you're recruiting.
It's a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Henning.
To make sure I understand, your financial ask us is a $50,000 one-time commitment, or you looking?
Yes. We would look for you to pledge maybe $15,000 a year for 3 years or something like that to get to the 50. I don't know. I didn't do the math. But at some point, because we're new into being the fundraiser, we're going to have to continue because, as you know for sure, and everybody else knows, the inflation rate in healthcare is far more than the inflation rate in the ordinary cost of living. And there's new technologies coming in all the time and new and greater machines. And so we're going to have to continue in the fundraising business. So maybe in the future we'll be looking for you to maybe make it a continuous item on your budget to look to us, but we can talk about that later. Right now, we're looking for $50,000 over the next 3 or 4 years.
Thank you, Councillor Sherrill.
I just want to say thank you very much for the great presentation. I'm very proud to be a part of this board.
And we're very proud that you represent this group on our Foundation Society, and you have been our vice chair at the time and chose not to continue with that, I think, for political reasons. But you've done a wonderful job and are continuing to do that as a member of our board of directors.
And I just want to point out the work that the foundation does, like behind the scenes that I didn't even know took place. I mean, right down to the flooring in the hospital, it goes through the foundation. They okay new chairs, equipment, x-ray machines, and they use it from the funds that they get. And for the $1 million commitment is, like they say, it's huge. And we are going to be working very hard in this campaign to do that. So we are going to continue to do this for approximately 3 years, I believe, or commitment is.
Well, we're obligated to pay this $1 million to the province.
And even
$100,000 a year for the next 3 years, and then settle up for the rest of the $1 million. So.
Right. And even though the building goes up and it's starting to be used, behind the scenes, we are going to still be fundraising for this building. So I just want to point that out. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't realize that the money the province had allocated for that you're going to have to pay back.
No.
But anyway, it's interesting.
The province, this building is a $12 million building.
Oh, it's $12 million.
And we're providing one.
We're providing one. Oh, okay. So now I got that straight. Thank you. On Dr. Recruit.
Yes.
And getting them to stay here. You know, there's a lot of committees been made up, my God, right around the province over that. And it seems to me that it's a little bit not quite right in the fact that we're trying to recruit doctors by building new facilities and giving them all kinds of perks to come here. If we were just to give them these young people that are taking doctor training and getting, certified to be doctors, right, going through everything, why can't we just forgive what they owe at the colleges and get them to stay here for 10 years? In agreement to that, I would think that most of them would take very seriously and have that done. And why are we not doing that? Why are we spending millions of dollars attracting and having groups come up with this instead of the province taking some proactive action?
Well, the province has an active recruiting group, much more active now than they were 5 years ago, because they share in our belief that this is the biggest problem we have in healthcare in the province. So they're being very active about it. It used to be that, well, for example, our foundation used to provide a bribe for a doctor to come here and that guaranteed that they would stay 5 years, and if they didn't pay the 5 years, they had to pay back a portion of the bribe. And what that resulted in when each community was doing it was we were bidding against each other and raising the price. So the healthcare boards in those times, and I was vice chair of the Valley Board at that time, decided that we would ask communities not to participate in that kind of competition anymore, but to unite through a provincial system to do this. There are some communities that are still bribing in one way or another. We would not be above offering a golf club membership or a gymnasium membership or whatever, help with housing and that sort of thing. But your point about the province doing this, and they're very active.
They can consider that, and they are looking at it, or what?
They're very active in recruitment. I don't know that they've done anything about paying back the loans and that sort of thing.
Well, I think that they'd be well advised to start.
They might very well.
Yes, and I think one thing to you're probably all aware of it, the doctors got a raise here just recently, so that made that issue kind of slide away now. So that is better for us in the recruitment field because they're going to get more money. It comes in over time, but still they got a decent raise. So that made that issue kind of go away.
Yeah, and the other criticism that the province was getting was that when they joined all the health boards together into one for the province, that it became too big and too administrative centered and that sort of thing. And just at the same time that this raise in pay for the doctors came in, the province announced that they had dismissed 3 of their high administrators and were going to start sending some of the administrative jobs back out into the districts again. So I don't know how far they'll go with that or how much effect that will have, but that's on the go.
Deputy White.
So when you were saying they got a raise in pay, so that raise in pay, is that straight across the board? It doesn't matter which hospital you work in? It's still the same rate?
Yes. Now you might find a little difference between a major emergency center and a minor center in the fee for the doctors that's there. And the other thing that's been happening lately too is all doctors used to be on what we call fee for service. That is, everything that they did for a patient, they charged for that to the province. A lot of the newer ones coming out that want to get into collaborative practice are coming out in what they call alternate pay scales, and it involves contractual. They make a contract with the province as to what services they will provide and what hours they'll be in and that sort of thing. So really one of the crunches is the older doctor who was fee for service came to your house all day, all night, or was in his office all day and all night, and his financial interest was in providing as many services to as many people as he could. These newer people coming out, and I completely understand, more power to them, seem to want to have a life. And no, absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's the way it should be. But you got to recognize that it takes 1.5 of the new doctors to replace one of the old fee-for-service guys that was working himself to death.
Yeah, we've been told that this is a big selling point for doctors that are coming into the area and looking at, what their different options are. And a couple of the doctors that we have in Middleton actually made their decision to move here after coming here as a resident. So
that's a great recruiting thing, the residential program that you have in Annapolis Royal as well as we have. And this new building will provide much better facilities for that.
Councillor Dunn.
Ms. Roger, I'd like to say thank you and to you as well for being here and giving us the advice. It's a sign of the times, and we're going to have a building to start going at it, and we have to keep working at it until we have it full. and everybody has to participate in their own way to be able to help out. We all need doctors. I'm pretty sure that if people in here, we all put our hands up, we know that, we do not have a doctor. We're flying in the wind. So, thank you. Thank you for your time and your effort and your continuing time and effort that you're putting in on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you.
decision
Oh,
improvement,
John.
which I just received, so.
I'll have John ask.
Yes, there's probably not enough.
Mr. Mount?
Mr. Moore?
Thank you.
Oh, we do have one final question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. The concept of the building as it relates to retaining doctors and recruiting doctors, I think, is self-explanatory. That model in of itself, the collaborative practice, does it not have a positive impact on the emergency room? So there's less people going to the emergency room, which is a more costly administrative process?
I'd have to conjecture on that, but what I would say is that the collaborative practice has the advantage that if you need a specialist, your family doctor in the collaborative practice will find you a specialist. If you need a nurse practitioner, they'll find you a nurse practitioner. If you need a pharmacist, they'll send a pharmacist to you. So that not everything has to be done by a full-scale qualified doctor. And so the collaborative practice, yes, should be cheaper in that we use a dietitian rather than a doctor to talk you about your diet. Unless you talk to me. But, and I have. I just don't listen. Okay. But as far as the effect on the emergency room, I would suspect that that's true, but I don't know that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Deputy Warden?
I would like to add this to the late additions at the end of the day.
Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate having all of you here today. We are going to pause now for lunch, and we will resume here at, goodness gracious, let's make it 20 to 2. That gives us an hour and 20 minutes to get where we need to go and get back. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We are on now to business. We're on now to business arising to the minutes, and our first item there is from our Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee, and I will ask perhaps if Al would like to speak to this a little.
Thank you very much. You've had a chance to look at the update, and you'll notice on page 1 at the bottom that I would put a motion at the end of the report. Two motions. I move that the physician recruitment and retention update number 1 be recommended to council for adoption.
Seconder for the motion. Seconded by the Deputy Warden. Discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Second motion, move that the following physician recruitment and retention mandate be recommended to council for adoption to assist as appropriate in all aspects of recruiting and retention of medical personnel. That is physicians, physician assistant, nurse practitioners, and like medical professionals.
Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you. And the next step will be, now that we have the mandate, is we will come up with a plan of work that we will present maybe next month or so. But coincident with that, we will be taking on some exploratory activities and gathering of information concomitant with coming up with the work plan.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the report. Our next item for business arising is Accessibility Advisory Committee. And there's nothing there. So we have to.
If I may, I think council, as of last week, have received correspondence about accessibility and what the plans are. They are going to be, my understanding, in the new fiscal year, developing either protocols or terms of reference that will assist these advisory committees. And so it's okay to form, but I think you'll need to wait for that information to come from the province.
So how would you suggest it be structured, John? Because, of course, we're seeing different models in different municipalities.
Well, this is something that stems from the letter that they just provided. So what they're laying out is what will be expected hasn't been provided as of yet, so I can't answer that question. I do believe they intend to offer what will be required early in the new fiscal year, sometime is my understanding. I don't have the letter in front of me, but I think that's what the letter states.
Questions? So there's no...
Well, last week it was referred to see if somebody wanted to be form a committee. I think it's fine to form, but your terms of reference they'll have to wait because I think it'll involve what the province will be expecting of these advisory committees.
And the province's expectations might also have to do with who will sit on the committee. Like there may be requirements for a certain number of citizen members and things of this sort as well. So does it make sense to form in advance of their instruction?
Well,
I don't think there's much you can do if you are formed. I think that you'll be idle until you get the information on that.
Councillor Henry.
yeah, I don't know how you could form before that, because I think that whatever the province puts out, that'll be the mandate of the committee. We need that language
Yes.
some way to make recommendations about X, Y, or Z, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I would recommend holding off until the province.
That would tend to be my thinking as well. Do you agree,
Yeah, I
Councillor
agree.
Blunt?
I agree with that.
All right, does anyone disagree with that? Anyone want to say something different?
I attended a session along with Councillor Morrison back in, I believe it was October, about accessibility by design in terms of what the province is doing under the Accessibility Act. And one of the things that they have say that these accessibility committees must be made up 50%, a little over 50% of the people with some form of disability. And that includes mental and physical. I kind of put a summary in the community development report on the criteria. This is a sample, what local did, and they did distribute it in terms of what you have to create within a year. So if you want to
Okay. So we're going to leave, sort of consensus that we're going to leave this right now until, and pending further instruction from the province?
It's February. Your next meeting's March, and then it's a new year. So we're not that far away. So I think you can show some interest in the intent to form one, but there could be some other criteria that you have to meet. I don't think they've spelled that out yet. I think that they're giving samples of what it may look like, and I think they intend to do that. But my understanding is that they're going to prescribe it after April. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's still evolving, but they do have a framework in which they want municipalities to start with. But it is still evolving.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go in that case to new business. First item, Carol was asked to compile a list of the proposed workshops that have come up in council, all of which have not yet actually been scheduled, so that we can go through the list to decide whether or not we actually still think we need to have workshops on all of these, and then also determine whether or not some of them might be combined into single sessions, and then finally to try to pick some dates to hold those meetings that we intend to hold. So what are folks' thoughts as they go through this list and look at the various items? Councillor, is that Councillor Hemming? Yes.
And I think I raised it matter of fact, it says I raised it, on the idea on civil disobedience. I'm not sure that takes a workshop for that. I'm not sure how you can workshop around that. My intention was that there is civil disobedience as a political process, that I think there's some misunderstanding about what it does and how it works and how it functions in political systems. So it's more of, I suppose that could be done better in a paper presentation as opposed to broad-scale discussion on that. So my thought is that we could drop that as a workshop item, and I could raise it in some other capacity.
Okay. Is anybody in disagreement with removing that from the list of the proposed workshops? No one is, so let's strike that one. Oh, Councillor LeBlanc.
What I'm thinking is, why would you remove it? You could put it into public engagement even if it's touched on for 15 minutes going over whatever pages, it doesn't mean that you dismiss it. I think that it should be at least put in there and given 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, if it needs to be discussed. Maybe it's not a big thing, but it's something that should be looked at. Why not?
Okay, all right. Further
But
thoughts?
put it in
It seems to me that this arose during the protests that were taking place in Halifax, and that it actually blocked off one of the bridges in Halifax, and it sort of sparked it as a topic of conversation. And I know that a component of that discussion was really at the theological level, as Councillor Hemming sort of described it, a discussion of what civil disobedience looks like, what it means, what its role is within the political arena. And then I think as a corollary to that, we had also probably, we're going to be discussing what the municipal response would be if we had issues of civil disobedience here, and what sort of responses the municipality should have to that. So there could still be ground for a conversation. Councillor Hemming?
Yeah, Councillor Vaughn was saying, put it into public engagement. Where would that be? Do we have is there a specific?
I don't think there. I think Councillor LeBlanc may have been reading this as a joint session on climate change, civil disobedience, and public engagement. And the central part is the most important part of that was civil disobedience, and then it connected to public engagement and to climate change because of the civil disobedience itself. So it was that was really the heart of the discussion, I think.
Yeah, well, I think she's right. I mean, we could have a brief discussion on that as part of that process in 15 or 20 minutes. I don't want to ignore it. I just didn't want a full workshop on it.
If it doesn't merit a full workshop, then probably the easiest thing to do, and that requires the least time for somebody who might be actually preparing a paper, is let's simply add it to the agenda for a committee of the whole and have it as an item for discussion. Does that make sense?
Works for me.
Does that work for everybody? And that way it's not lost? Okay. So perhaps I'll ask our clerk who should make a note of that. All right.
There's probably matters of what's legal and what's not legal as it relates to civil disobedience, and I think that's something that you may want to consider as part of this process, because this was a time period when there were some demonstrations in Halifax and people were blocking the bridge, and I think some people ended up being arrested, and so I think, what is civil and what is not civil from the legal content as well.
Right. Okay.
So you want this added to
perhaps for April's committee of the whole?
April committee of the whole?
No, it's not a long committee of the whole.
Actually, April will be March instead. It won't be lengthy-ish. Okay, all right. Let's go.
Committee of the whole twice and then we move to
I know.
this.
I know.
I just want to know where.
Couldn't most of those be married together into one worship? I mean, I've got two of those with blue root involved in them. Can't that kind of be joined into one? Can't the climate change solution and the public engagement climate change one be tied into one workshop? And the Raven Haven and the low income support be handed in basically an hour or so each, right? An hour or so each. Make it.
I'm amenable to suggestions. What do folks think of that as a suggestion? To group them that way. Councillor LeBlanc?
I certainly say that that's a good point, because that's what I saw when I saw this, because a lot of things are overlapping in one way or another, except for the fact that the low-income support, that's a whole different story completely, because that would be revamping, that would be time-consuming as far as I'm concerned, and look at it in numbers and financials and discussing specifics.
Okay.
That I think that one will take longer than just going in.
Agreed.
Okay.
Councillor Morrison, thoughts?
I'd just like to talk about the low income support motion made by Councillor McDonald, which I seconded. A future workshop with information to be provided. And I would suggest that the first step is for us to be provided with that information. And then we can decide whether we do it at a committee of the whole or whether it really needs a separate session. And the information to which I refer is examples of places that
have tier support.
That have tiers.
Right. So there need to be some staff pre-work in order to be ready for a workshop like this. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Councillor Sherry.
And we've been provided with some of that information already in the past, so it should, I mean, DG and somebody else, another municipality as well, we're both doing it, so I mean, they have access to that material.
Okay, good. Councillor McDonald.
That topic, the last one they were just talking about, potentially is huge. It could take weeks if it involves the cap. I don't know if anybody else paid any attention to NSFM's first meeting. I know I did. I followed it on. I actually got a Twitter feed, so I can follow it, and it's all going to tie together. And you toss that in there. This is a big topic.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very big. It's not a 60-minute thing or something. It could be several. It could be over years.
Yeah,
it could be.
Councillor Moss.
Thank you. And it's a very useful comment. I'm not sure how the cap enters into this. Notwithstanding what I have just said, media reports of the work of NSFM with regard to the cap over 2 days with multi-parties indicated that there was no agreement. That they have to keep working on it.
That's correct.
It appears from the media work that NSFM didn't count on the fact that politicians would be politicians, and they were. And what we're dealing with here, in my mind, it doesn't have anything to do with the cap.
I feel upset.
It may have implications for what we might choose to do in terms of a tiered approach, because whether the cap is removed and the rate at which it's removed, because it'll probably be a staged removal, will have consequences for our residents, whether they're positive consequences or negative consequences. That's one of the things we might want to take into account.
I accept that, but I predict that we will be midway through the term of the next council before anything at all is done.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you. All right. Further thoughts on that one. So I'm assuming we would like to keep this in the list. Yes. All right. Okay. Let's just go through them one at a time in that case. So the bike lane, Blue Route workshop, and strategic plan review workshops. Those are two separate things. We'd just like to have this. Yes.
I kind of think we're too busy to discuss bike lanes that we cannot afford at this time. I'm okay with striking that for now.
Okay. Deputy Warden.
Well, I don't want it stricken because we have to get on the same page as Department of Transportation and Infrastructure on the roads that they plan on paving. So in case we need bike lanes on those roads, that we can prepare ahead of time to be able to afford to cost share or whatever is given our opportunity.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the update of the roads and which ones are going to do, that we have no knowledge until this year that they're being done.
But it would seem to me that and I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I think you're absolutely right. But I think that what we need in that case is some correspondence with the Department of Infrastructure and Transportation, right? Because that doesn't require a workshop at which we're going to sit and debate it and hammer it out. What we really need is a list to the best of their understanding of where everything's going to be.
If I may just add, I think the Blue Route, it's called the Blue Route because they're putting the bicycle lanes in.
Right.
We're not going to be required to.
Right.
But Steve will keep in touch, and we know what the Blue Route is so far through this area.
Oh, last time I talked to it,
It's always been fuzzy
in the Upper Valley. I don't think they made a determination on that. Correct. If it's designated as the Blue Route, the province will install that. I don't think we got involved on the other areas because
they weren't a part of the Blue Route.
But they provided some connectivity for our communities.
Yeah.
And the same as Highway 8 that we discussed last month. But they do keep us posted. But reflecting the Deputy Warden's comments, sometimes they come at us pretty fast because they change priority TIR can change quickly.
That's right.
It's sort of overlap sometimes. So we communicate with them the best we can, and the 3-year plan on the website.
Yeah. Councillor Henry?
This is just my kick at the can here, but what if we group everything with the bike lane, on the bike lanes together? That's the first one, bike lane blue route workshop, and then in the second item it says blue route. Combine all that, anything with the blue route, and which is bicycle recreation, with Raven Haven. That becomes a workshop. But bike lane and Raven Haven is one workshop.
I'm just wondering what we'll actually do at the portion of the workshop that has to do with the bike lane and blue route, because what's been expressed, I think, is really simply we'd like to have a crystal ball to have a clear understanding of exactly where the province is going with what they're going to be developing and what role we could play. But I don't think that's something we can make happen in the course of a workshop discussion. I think that really just involves trying to stay in close contact with the province and maintaining awareness of what's in the 3-year plan, and as that shifts. I'm not sure how a workshop will be productive. Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, I'm not sure it will be productive or not. I was just trying to group things here and then eliminate things we don't need. But again, in the first one, if we had, I don't know how strategic planning keeps coming up here. I'm glad it is, but you have strategic planning here, and then you have strategic planning down in the next one. I think anything with strategic planning can go together. And then you've got, the fire services, RCMP, strategic planning. I don't know why that couldn't all flow together, because you're kind of in the same brain space, because that's policy related, I suppose. So anything to do with fire services, RMP, and RCMP, and strategic planning, whatever those trigger points were, that's one workshop. Anything to do with climate change is another. Even the low income, I suppose, could work into the policy, the fire services. We're trying to do not more than 4 hours a day, right? These are half-day workshops. That's right. Anything to do with policy, fire services, RCMP, strategic planning, low income support, that's one. Anything to do with climate change is 2. And the bike lane maybe drops out altogether.
How do folks feel about that as a proposal? That would focus us down to what, 2?
2, maybe 3, because it's still Raven Haven's still an outlier there.
Right.
Public engagement.
That public engagement was specifically related to the civil disobedience. I don't think it was a separate topic. I think it was all one.
No, I was thinking Raven Haven and that one together.
Oh, okay. Well, that's...
So you said you came down to 2. What are those?
Well, 2 would be 1 on strategic plan, fire services, and RCMP.
And maybe low income support.
And low income support. And then another one on climate change solutions. Now, the only question that I have on that one was that motion was made back in March of last year, and when it was made, we hadn't any clear intention of at that point of holding our own climate change action summit, to which we invited not just one group but many groups. I wouldn't want to convey the impression that suddenly the one group is elevated above all the rest, and that we give them our ears for one particular workshop to which nobody else is invited. It sort of puts them in a position of planning policy. Whereas we definitely want them to be active participants at our summits. We did have one in November. We'll probably be having another one at the end of the spring. And so that was my only thought about that.
But we didn't, if I may, we didn't get any information from our last summit as is, so it would be nice to get some information out of that.
It's coming. I know the report's just about done. So the report's coming in. Yes.
So that would be part of this, because I agree with you. It's like the RCMP one. I had the same thought as you. They came in and they did the presentation, and we all agree that that's excellent, because everybody finds out, all the things that are being done, and was it something that we needed to do more? Because I think that was done because of that. So I'm confused with some of these.
I think the RCMP workshop, wasn't that at their request?
That was the one that the lady was supposed to come down from Halifax.
Yes.
And she was unable, and then we never got rescheduled.
So it never really got rescheduled. So that's off the table from their end. Okay. So
and then they came in and said that
Yeah. So do you now? You and the deputy warden are both on the Fire Services Advisory Committee.
No.
Do you feel that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Is it
Police Advisory Board.
Police Advisory?
Yes.
That's right. Police Advisory
I'm
Board.
police, yes.
Police Advisory Board. Sorry,
That's okay.
afternoon scramble. So is it your feeling as well that probably the need for this has kind of been displaced because the person who was going to be the speaker is no longer available, and we did have a presentation from the RCMP?
I think the situation that came out of it was that it would be nice to have them every year. Right.
Yeah.
To bring it up.
Oh,
To bring it at council.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that pattern works really well. This was an oddity because this was the only one of these proposed workshops that came in at the request of a different organization. The RCMP asked to come to give us a workshop, but then that opportunity has already been withdrawn. And I think council does have an opportunity to speak to them when they come into their annual presentation. So maybe we can drop that one off the list entirely.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. All right. Let's take that one off.
Another topic on that was that clubhouse, which is now gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was part of it as well.
Okay. Councillor Henry.
Still there. Just a building.
Sorry to talk so much, but what if we combined all the climate change stuff into one workshop, which would include, and I don't even know if there's an Annapolis Climate Change Action Association is still alive and well. I'm assuming it is, but I don't know. I have no feedback. So, but if it is, it is. If it is, it's not. But at least do a climate change workshop. That's the summit, maybe a little bit about public engagement. But the other piece is, if we are going to do another climate summit, we don't have a committee to do that because we disbanded that committee. And we're going to do it as a council. So this would be a good time to not only part of that, do anything with climate and end up at the end of that workshop to see if we want to do another summit, where, when, what's combined there. Because that climate change summit, it's really, and we haven't made the connection, that's really connected with the forestry report and our economic development strategy. Those are all solutions. And it'd be nice to get those all in the room for 4 hours and figure out what that all means.
Okay. All right. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Just on the last part about the climate change summit, I remember the discussion and I remember putting forth the argument that the report ought to go to the committee and be considered by the committee, and I'm not sure that we disbanded that.
Yeah, I was thinking that I was going to check with Carolyn afterwards to see if that motion was ever made. I know it was discussed, but I don't know if we actually did disband, because I remember that component of the conversation as well.
Exactly.
So, and I do know that Noreen has just, I had correspondence from her last week stating that she's just about finished off the report, and she apologized that it's taken a little while to get out. There's a lot to pull together.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm seeing as I'm looking at this is a workshop to do with strategic plan, fire services, and low-income support, and an additional to deal with climate change solutions. And the outlier and the question, I guess, is the Ravenhaven workshop, if folks want to do that. And we did have a workshop last year, I believe. The only thing that I would say about having a workshop on Ravenhaven at this point is we're once again sort of getting into the prep for this year's season. And if council were to make decisions that stem from the workshop that would have an impact on operations for Ravenhaven, it's a real burden for staff to implement changes, whether it's development or whether it's pulling something back or anything to be changed at this point is kind of burdensome. It's probably the sort, if you're going to have that kind of a conversation, probably better to do it as a fall discussion. And of course, it didn't happen this past fall. But that's up again at your discretion.
If I can just, no decisions are allowed to be made in the workshop.
No.
It's more about just understanding of what's taking place. And so when you look at the items that are here, fire services workshop, we had one last year. We went through it from stem to stern and how it operates. We went into how they interpret, how they make application to us. We went through it in quite a bit of detail. I'm not sure what more we can add to that workshop.
Workers' comp.
Yeah, well, that workers' compensation has been legislated, and we have how many that we have to manage?
There are 357 firefighters that provide service to the county of Annapolis.
So all their WCB benefits will have to be managed by us. And we're not even sure of what the impact will be at this point in time. I couldn't give you a workshop on it right now to explain what that detail will mean.
Councillor Henning?
Yeah, I think we're getting close to this because I'd like to minimize the amount of workshops or make if we're going to do 4 hours that there's enough material for 4 hours. Because I think, to me, what happens when the question arises in council that we don't quite know what to do with it, don't have an answer for it, our response will do a workshop to dig into it deeper. And sometimes we don't need that. Maybe there's just one little item that's confusing to us. You don't need a full workshop, but it's an idea that needs more explanation. So either we have to figure out a way in committee of the whole to deal with those things as they arise, so that we just don't dump them, because a lot of this stuff, the problem we're having now is it's been so long and we can't quite figure out why.
Why was it chosen?
Why is strategic planning on here on Blue Route? Or why is strategic planning even locked in there? I forgot why we raised
the motivation was.
So when we just pass off the workshop, this is what we end up with at a certain period of time. What did we mean? What was our intention about climate change that needed a workshop or strategic planning that needed further discussion? I've lost those pieces.
Part of the information related to Ravenhaven was really, it came down to whether or not what type of food we would have at the canteen. And so last year we ended up reducing it. Just ice cream, Albert, was it last year?
Yeah, ice cream.
Ice cream and prepared snacks.
But we did get some criticism for just having that. So these are the types of things that are coming out of the workshops, and so we tried to contract out, if you remember. We put tenders out to see if people would bid on it. They just never responded. It's typically something, if a municipality or community organization can apply for students to work, such a thing, then they may take that on. But if the community group's not set up to apply for students, they probably would shy away from trying to operate something that's just open for 2 months. So it's difficult. A lot of municipalities have struggled with beachside canteens, depending on where they are. And so last year we tried to stick to just one thing, ice cream, due to some of the stuff that went missing the year previous. But we did get some complaints from citizens that, they used to get this or they used to get that.
Remember when?
Let's see, Councillor Morrison's next.
Thank you. With regard to strategic planning, and I'm not sure if the warden was at the meeting where we discussed this, but there was a discussion, and I think even a motion, to disband the strategic planning committee. And I pointed out that the warden had a special interest in the strategic planning committee because of what it is we want to do with the subject of youth engagement. And so we decided not to deal with the question of disbandment until we dealt with the question of youth engagement.
So was that to be the subject for discussion for the workshop itself?
I don't remember the workshop.
Because I think the workshop was being proposed for a review of the strategic plan. I think that was the purpose, was to review the strategic plan.
Okay.
Which I still think has value, particularly when we have a new councillor, and it's a good thing to do. I think as we reach the end of an administrative term as well, to sort of have a view of what we have done and how it all fit into our strategic plan. So I would be in favor of keeping that. I think. So,
in all honesty, I think the strategic plan is the most important piece. Yeah. Because really, it's really what you're going to discuss, what your priorities are, and you're going to discuss, perhaps, as it relates to how you want to approach your financial policy, so that you can move towards, having positive changes for climate change. Positive changes that would lead to more citizen participation. Positive changes that may lead to reducing your energy costs. What are the financial policies stemming from your strategic plan that will help you reach those goals? And so when we did it the last time, we had I think there were 5 priorities that came out of it. And then, so council established the priorities. Then it went to the directors and management, and we set up an operational plan, and we reported back on all the initiatives each department was working on in respect to each priority of the strategic plan. But that was done 2 years ago now. And really, your strategic plan is never a closed document. You should be coming back to it. We do come back to it, but not in a coordinated way. I think if you have a workshop, I think that's what you should do. Come back and review where you are and reconfirm if that's where you want to be and where do you want to go.
Councillor LeBlanc?
He basically wrapped up exactly what I was going for in a different way, but here we go. The bike lane, blue roof, that's basically a sheet of paper that tells us where the government's going to put, and then if we want to add. So that's just easy. You know what I mean. Strategic plan. The way I see it is basically what you said. If we put strategic plan it deals with the public, so public engagement. Would deal with civil disobedience. If we can touch on that, that would go through into there. And that would be one workshop right there, as far as I see. But the one on low income support, that to me is one workshop with maybe something else. But from what I can see, the climate change we can't do anything with before we get the report that we haven't received. The Ravenhaven, it's not a good time to try to change things now because things are done, so that removes those. But we need to put it that we need one when the results come in from the climate change summit. And our CMP thing is gone, and it leaves for the fire services workshop, which still you have to work on, so that removes that one too. So we're left with 2. That's the way I kind of...
Nicely summarized. That's how I would have shaken it down too. Well done.
That's the way I see it.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan.
So regarding to the Ravenhaven, and I think I was one that asked for the workshop back, it was before 2019, but when it came up for a workshop, it got basically boiled down to financials, and that wasn't what our goal was to set out. It was more like pros and cons of maybe possibly making it into a day park, but that never ever did get discussed. So I'd like to see this back on the board and have a discussion on whether it's more feasible to it doesn't matter to me what they sell out of the canteen. That wasn't the goal that I had in regard to workshops. So I'd like to review that a little bit.
Well, if in that case...
And it doesn't have to be implemented this year. I mean, it's nice to be able to have it done and not sit here next year and say, well, it's too late again.
Yes, of course. Well, if that's the approach that's being taken to it, that's strategic planning. So why not in that case include it as sort of a subset?
I think strategic planning will unpack each of those. And a part of that discussion was financial policy, because what came up is what is the goal in Ravenhaven? Is it to have people use it? And if that's the goal, then what is the financial policy that leads to people using it? And that's how we were going to get into that. Again, these are all strategic planning issues that I think you can get unpacked in that process. And then what happens is that you can then say, okay, what would be the suggested financial policy to increase participation at a beach, right? So would we have more community events? Would we have, so these are the things that we would talk at the staff level. We would come back with recommendations that council could pick and choose from, which they would want to be a part of the financial policy. That's how we would approach it typically if that was the priority in the strategic plan.
Okay, so let's start there.
All right. So what I'm hearing in that case is a workshop on the strategic plan that would include issues such as Ravenhaven, and then an additional
public engagement.
Just a moment. So one on strategic plan, had someone suggested that the low income support be included in that? That's financial policy as well.
I think that's going to take a little
I think that's going to be asked for that to be
That's a separate one?
what I got.
What you've got? Thank you. You're collecting this too.
I'm trying. I have one called Strategic Plan Review, which will include Ravenhaven, which will include all the policy stuff, and one on low income support. the climate change solutions one would come as a discussion when the report is available.
So that date
it
we
may
set
not be
later.
a workshop, that may be a committee of the whole, I don't know. Report received at committee of the whole for discussion.
So that leaves us in that case with 2 to set dates for right now and 1 to set a future date for once that report comes back.
I agree.
Folks, all for that? Councillor Henn?
Yeah, I've grown a lot in the last 10 minutes here in terms of my thinking on it. But I mean, to hear us talk, to me what's important is all of these plans that we have need to be reviewed. The strategic plan, economic development 2050, forestry 2018, and climate change, the climate emergency, the climate change conferences. Those are all interrelated in some sort of way. It might be interesting to deal with all those in one thing, to just see where we're at with those. Because we have to make a decision whether to continue with the committee process on economic development. What does that do? What does it mean? Everything has changed. I mean, that economic development was done 7 years ago. And I think it's still a good one. But I think it's time to touch base with it, look at financial policy, where the staff has gone with that, because we've got an economic development budget. Do we need more on that, less on that? All those sort of things. We never really touched back with that. After all those public engagements for economic development, you just see, even after 7 years, are we still on the right track? So I think those are all interrelated discussions that come from strategic plan. You can just draw this little diagram, strategic plan, economic development, climate change. They're all in that. They're all a direction, a strategic plan for the county. I think to review them in isolation is not as good as looking at them holistically. See how they fit together. Did we get it right? Do they fit together differently now? That would be a nice 4-hour workshop. It may raise more questions at the end of that than answers, but I think that's okay.
So you want to ensure that climate change is one of the things that's discussed in the course of strategic planning workshop.
And economic development and forestry report, because they all stem from...
They're all identified in the strategic plan, so it's council's policy on what your priorities are. And basically the idea is that council sets the priorities, and that allows us to establish, the administration to establish the operational piece that goes along with those priorities. If you don't identify a priority, we're not going to set the operational piece for that. And so it's important. And sometimes we have finished a lot of those operational issues 2 years ago on the strategic priorities. I think there's an opportunity to do more, but we should really go back and review it with the governance, because you set the policy. And the priorities are a part of that.
So what I'd suggest in that case at this point is why don't we pick a date for the 2 that we know. I'm sorry. And actually, I had Councillor Gunn and Councillor Sherritt. Sorry about that. Councillor Gunn.
I think a strategic plan workshop is probably a good idea. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's a good idea is because I have never read the strategic plan of Annapolis County. I certainly never was around to have any input because of what that was done in the council before. And the last few years we haven't had a workshop on the strategic workshop of Annapolis County where we want to go to. There's a lot more that has come along in the last few years than probably what was there when that was made. There's a lot of things that I think, and a lot of people, citizens in this county, think we should be looking at. At our infrastructure is certainly one of them, and our capacity with where it's going, our sewer in and around Annapolis, and we're going to have a bunch more building over on the other side of the Allen's Creek now and Wins. That's why I ask questions about saturation points. And now we're talking about another initiative in that area. And, and that particular property, I brought it up before about its septic capability. So there's a lot that we have to start looking at in the next few years, I'm not saying in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have some sort of some expansion in our sewer capabilities in around this area, but within a few years, we're going to need some capacity changes there if we plan to have any growth in around around this part of the county. And from what I'm led to believe in the same light, if we look further up the county, in the weather boroughs there, we have problems between one municipality's septic system and ours, and sort of, I'm not quite sure what the word is, but competing almost interests. So, I think that a strategic plan workshop is a very good thing.
Good.
And we should have one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan.
I was just going to mention, before we start picking dates, on page 96, we have a financial list of dates for the financial committee workshop. So I just thought maybe that was more important to pick the date from there first. Or you're thinking the third.
What page?
On page 96.
That's right.
It's been a long time coming.
That's right.
And three of those dates on page 96. Warden You're Away, March 3rd and 4th.
That's right.
And March 10th is Committee of the Whole.
Okay.
So that's leaving
25th of February.
So March 9th, 24th, and 25th.
February 25th or 26th, March 9th, March 24th or 25th.
And they wanted to pick 3 dates, correct? So that if you took the February 25th, 26th, and March 3rd, would you choose those?
I won't be here for March 3rd.
I won't be here for March 3rd.
March 9th.
So the 25th, 26th, and the 9th of March.
Yeah.
Good.
Everyone's good with that?
9, 24, and 25.
Two of them, I'm away on the... I have a medical thing on the 25th.
Middle of March, I'll be in on.
In that case, let's do February 26th, March 9th, and March 24th. How about those?
Sorry, start again?
So these are 3 proposed dates.
Okay.
And that's Wednesday, February 26th, Monday, March 9th, and Tuesday, March 24th.
And do you want morning or afternoon session? It's a 4-hour session.
Morning.
My mistake. Off the head of me, I'm looking at all these months. 25th of February is fine. It's 25th of March that I'm off.
Yeah.
So 25th, 26th, and the 9th.
Okay, I'm good with that. Is everyone else good with that?
25, 26, and 9?
Yeah, those are 3 options, but it'll only be one of those 3 because we have to make sure those 3 are
February and March. 25?
And March 9th.
February 25th, February 26th, and March 9th.
All morning.
Mornings.
Morning. Yes.
Okay. I will let them know.
9? 10?
If it's...
They are coming from the city to do this.
It'll probably be 10 o'clock.
All 3 of them, 10 a.m.
It might actually be easier for them to
It might be
actually...
easier for the afternoon.
Yeah, let's schedule them 1 to 5 instead, and that because if they're coming out from Halifax, we want to make it easy for them to do that.
I will tell them, and then I can let you know which one they decide.
Okay.
February 25th, February 26th, and March 9th.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder, Councillor Sheridan. Councillor Hemming, you had your hand up?
I guess yes, but I forgot.
All right, no worries. Okay, so in that case, let's pick a date for the Strategic Planning Committee.
Strategic planning.
Workshop, sorry.
What's the 25th,
Did we put any?
26th, 29th, and 9th? What are those 3?
Oh, those are for the audit committee, and that's
those 3?
yeah. And it'll only be one of those 3. The person who'll be delivering the session has asked us to select 3 option dates because they're trying to set up, they're trying to coordinate their own schedule.
Did you know that?
So just stay away from all of those 3.
Well, how about in that case? Let's pick March 26th for strategic planning workshop.
Morning or afternoon?
March 26th, yeah.
March 26th, if it's just us, let's make it morning. And I think we're past the policy point where we can have meetings start at 9 o'clock again at that point. And that way we can be out by lunch, hopefully. So let's...
I'm not going to be available that day, but...
You know what?
Thursday. 26, they said.
Strategically.
Yeah,
At what time, 9?
Yes, please.
9 o'clock.
That's 9 o'clock. All right, so that's the one, and the low income.
Would it be possible, when would we know about the one coming out of Halifax? We had 3 days set aside there. Once we knew which day they want, we might use one of those other ones
to the morning.
All right, I'm all right with that.
I don't know when they will get back to me. I've been asking them since November, and they just gave me those dates.
Well, why, if we've got those dates, but they'll probably want to confirm reasonably soon, or else.
I'd have to let them know by today what 3 dates we pick. Like I say, it took them from November to now.
Right, so you're saying pick our own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe work around.
So how much work does the staff have to get ready for us to do the next one?
Well, you know what? If we're taking the morning of the 26th to deal with our strategic plan review, why don't we plan to make it a day and go for lunch, then come back and deal with the low income tier support in the afternoon. That way we don't book a second day.
You ready?
Yes, so let's call it 1 o'clock, but we'll actually just work through whatever we have to work through in the morning and then transition over.
So it starts at 10 a.m. and it'll run through...
It starts at 9 a.m. and it starts at 9 a.m. and it'll run
26th of March?
26th of March. Good.
So we'll do that same day.
Yeah, the day full of chit chat.
I should have come up on the calendar.
Okay. All right. Good. And then as soon as we get the report back from Noreen and have an opportunity to review it, then we'll add a workshop for climate change. All right. Thank you, folks. That went to 45 minutes. Okay, let's go on in that case to... We need a workshop instead of our workshops, yeah. Let's go on in that case to the Nova Scotia Nunavut Command Royal Canadian Legion 16th Annual Veterans Service Recognition Book.
So we have done,
Yes, we've advertised this before.
You have advertised in the past a full color business card size ad, which is $260.
Would council like to do the same again?
yes. I move that we purchase a full
color business card size ad
ad
at a cost of $226.09 plus HST.
Yes.
Perfect. Moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor DeVillon. Discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next, we're on to our request for decisions. Deputy Warden, if you could take the for us.
7-day notice be given for municipal council to amend AM-1.2.5 declaration of proclamation policy by adding March as Epilepsy Awareness Month and March 26th as Purple Day, and by changing National to Nova Scotia Heritage Day in February statutory holiday.
So that means that it had been proclaimed as National Heritage Day, but now it's specifically Nova Scotia Heritage Day. Do I call it? Could I have a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Discussion on the motion.
Can I ask?
Yes, Councillor LeBlanc.
On page 35, when you have the actual month and what has taken place, like different, when you look at the March one, it just says Purple Day. Is that the way
That's what it's called.
Can we just provide a little bit more, because there's different purple.
It is part of Epilepsy Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Purple Day is part of Epilepsy Awareness Month. They proclaim Purple Day. They don't necessarily proclaim epilepsy. Awareness Month.
So they don't want it added on.
I would put them both on the same line. Epilepsy Awareness Month and Purple Day.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right. So now, next is advisory committees and boards policy amendment. This is just a small amendment to do with compensation, I think, for provincial appointees.
A 7 days notice be given for municipal council to amend AM-1.3.6 advisory committees and boards policy by adding section 8. Effective January 1st, 2020, the citizen member appointed by the Minister of Justice shall receive the same annual honorarium and reimbursement of expenses as other citizen members that are appointed by municipal council.
Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All in favor of this discussion? Councillor Henry.
Here's a question that when I look through this, I don't know how this fits, but I'm on the province's asset management working group. You have been for a couple of years, maybe 3. And I've never asked for nor received any sort of compensation. The meeting's always in Halifax. And no, even though it's the province's working group, they don't pay expenses. And the appointment really was raised by NSFM. They don't pay expenses. So there's only 2 councillors on it, one from Cape Breton and myself. I don't know what the Cape Breton individual does, but I've never, and I'm not asking for compensation, but it's probably cost me $1,000. And I don't know how this fits into that because it's not, it's a board that I asked to sit on because they put out, asking for people to sit on. And it's not anointed by the council as a committee. But I don't know quite how sure that this is different. If the Minister of Justice, if they're going to start paying those expenses, and what about the other expenses committees that aren't? That's kind of convoluted in itself, but
I think this circumstance pertains quite specifically to the individual who serves the chair of the Police Advisory Board. No longer the chair.
The Department of Justice representative.
The Department of Justice representative.
David Brown used to be that. The chair used to be the DOJ.
Fair enough. So that we have one representative on the Police Advisory Board, which by legislation has to be appointed by the Department of Justice. And I think it's a unique circumstance. Do we have other individuals in similar circumstances on other committees?
I don't.
Federation of Agricultural Offences Arbitration.
That's right. That's the other one that will be in the same position. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I have 2 points. First, on page 36, it says, shall receive the same annual honorarium. And on page 56, it says $50 per meeting. That's the sum for which the lady is asking. But we've changed it from per meeting to per year.
There's a provision in our policy that even if a committee doesn't meet over the course of a year, everyone who's been serving that committee is compensated for at least one meeting, even though it hasn't taken place. So that's the annual reimbursement.
Yes.
And I think that only occurs if you haven't had a meeting.
Well, then, in that motion, if you have 2 meetings, then the person doesn't get 2 times 50.
They would.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It says the same annual honorarium on page 36.
So we should drop the term annual and simply make it honorarium.
Yes.
So that's a motion to amend.
I'll make that motion to amend.
Seconder for the amendment. Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Good catch. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
My second point is the point brought up by Councillor Hemming. I am diametrically opposed to this county having representatives on substantial committees, such as the one on which he sits, And if his expenses are not reimbursed by the province, then that representative's expenses ought to be reimbursed by council.
We didn't appoint him.
We don't have.
I didn't say that. It's an area that we ought to take a look at, and perhaps folks who apply for committees and are appointed to them ought to come to council, and perhaps they ought to say that if this is a provincial committee, then the province pays certain expenses. I know, as president of the Operating Boards Association of Nova Scotia, if the province asks me to do anything, the province pays the expenses.
Thank you. For further thoughts, Councillor LeBlanc.
I don't disagree with what Councillor Morrison is saying, because he should be reimbursed, and he should be reimbursed for doing this. However, when I look at this, I'm looking at it in two different ways, where I see that in this particular case, we have all the committees that we have. And this one, we have the committees. And she is part of our committee. One person in that committee, on the board, on the police advisory board, has to be the representative for the Justice Department. We always thought that the Justice Department paid their expenses. They didn't at any time. They appointed them, but they never paid them, so we never paid them. But realistically, when I look at it, it's like she was chosen to be on that board from our deliberation sitting at the nominating table.
She wasn't.
No, not that one.
Her name came to you. Her name
She was the name that came to us.
by the
There you go.
province. Yeah.
So there's the problem. However, so if we do one, do we do them all? There's my question.
I think it's as Don indicated, there is one other appointment that's similar, because it's a provincial appointee to the Fences Arbitration Committee. But I think those are the only two where the province specifically appoints somebody and then doesn't compensate them.
Because those are legislative committees that we have.
So do we cover them both? It's just
right now,
I know. May I read the? I've already flipped pages. I can't find it.
40, I think.
Oh yes, because this is just the appointment. Who appoints? Which department appoints the individual defense arbitration committee?
Federation of Agriculture makes those appointments.
Oh.
And that was the only previous precedent we had for providing compensation to appointees that hadn't been appointed by council.
Us.
That's the only similarity there, appointed by the province. This is the first such appointment by the province.
By the province. Okay. So this really is unique. It is a unique circumstance. So this just covers that one circumstance. All right. Are folks ready for the question, or is there further discussion?
The motion is amended.
All right. So on the motion is amended, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Deputy Warden.
7 days notice being given for municipal council to amend AM-1.4.12 tax exemption and reduction policy by adding District 10, Carlton Road Industries, and by making the following name changes in District 7, Paradise Historical Society, which used to be Paradise Women's Institute, and changing United Baptist Church to Nicktock Baptist Church.
Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion of the motion. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. How many properties do we, Carlton Road, do we forgive all their taxes on the property? Doesn't matter how many properties they pick up, we forgive their taxes.
If they request.
If they request it, yeah.
Thank you.
For anything further? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's
Give us
carried.
the secondary.
Councillor Fowler. Okay. All right, and let's go on now to the Bridgetown 2019 LUB-003 Shell Zoning Map Amendment application. And we had a significant separate package of information that was distributed to councillors that I hope you've had an opportunity to review. Thank you very much to the proponent for presenting those to us. It's very helpful. And Albert has a PowerPoint. Albert. No, that's the wrong one. That's it's not stapled in, it's too thick. Oh, that's okay.
Up on the top left there, Albert. There it is.
What's on camera? 60-50.
There we go. Okay, so what I'm talking about here, I believe at the last meeting you had asked to be able to see something up on the screen as well. A lot of these are repeats of what is in your handout packages, but I figured we'd take you through a few things here.
Thank you.
Okay, so a nicer picture, bigger view, those kinds of things to give you an idea of the neighborhood, where the property is and such like that, and what's to the left and right. And as you can see by the arrow here, this is the subject property right here.
Albert?
No.
What are the lines running?
Those are contour lines.
Contour lines, thank you.
And that's going to become important later on, by the way. We worked on that, right? Okay, so you see a little bit more detail as we zoom in. Again, these are contour lines. This one here is going to be the most significant, and we'll come back to talking about as well. It just gives you a nice graphic representation by a photo of the property in itself. So this one was handed out previously. What it does, it gives you an idea of the area that we were looking at, the developable area. The whole property, while it's about 2.46 acres, this area right here is the 50 feet behind the deck and the pool. That gives you a 3/4 an acre. It's a developable area. This here follows that contour that the councillor pointed out. That is to start at the conservation zone, which would not allow development in it. So, you have sketch in your thing there. This does tend to squish it a little tiny bit, but it gives you the new layout of what the applicant is proposing. I believe they mentioned one thing is that they've moved one of the programming tents based on what they've heard from the PAC meeting as well. So, you'd asked for some additional information. That's the new write-up that goes along with it. The only one I'll notice that needs to change is institutional zoning, not industrial. Okay, so now you get a little bit more information in terms of the size of the washroom facilities. We will get into something more detailed as well with that. It talks about the number of tents, the prime tents, the programming tents, the locations, which I just mentioned about one was changing. The tent locations are wooden platforms, or our tent foundations are wooden platforms. And the second page continues on about meal preparation, the traffic impact study, and some of the things that also will come out about with fire regulations, building permits, and those things. As I said, some of them weren't asked for, but they will come up if the amendment were to go through. So, there's a nice color photo, because black and white did not come out well.
And it's one person in one.
That is a programming tent, I believe. An example of a programming tent.
But the letter said that the center will accommodate a maximum of 8 clients. The clients will each have their own accommodation in the highest
Right.
quality tent.
Yeah. So that is a programming tent, and that's an example of a resident tent.
Yeah.
So it'd be 8 of those on the property with the other ones that you've seen as well. Now, each one would be on a wooden foundation. So, just so that you have some idea as to what the construction of the tent is, when it comes to building permit and fire inspection, it's still going to be required that you meet Canada Standards Association certification as well. And a little bit more of information that came along with the tents, and all of that's in your package.
Thanks, Gary. So the drawing here says this place is 50 feet wide. That's got to be wrong because then up below it says it's 70 feet in that direction. So that must be 500 feet wide, is that the property? When we look at this nice picture we have here.
Yeah. So when you go back to this one as well, that will tell you the dimensions. So, yes.
So could you repeat your question, Councillor?
I'm saying, when I look at this picture, it says that property is 50 feet wide.
Oh, that's the 50-foot line. That's that line shows you that it demarcates 50 feet from the back of a primary residence.
Well, I can see that if you put it in that section. So that property is about 250 feet wide.
It is about that.
About that, because it wasn't clear if you got the 50-foot mark.
Yeah.
You know, the way it's drawn, it's not clear here.
Yeah.
And the other question I have is, how are they going to access this? All further back here?
There's the one access to the property.
And that's all there's going to be?
That's the one that's being proposed to be looked at for a commercial access.
Okay. So the one thing I got to ask beyond this, Albert, is once this is zoned commercial,
institutional.
It's institutional.
Yes.
And that's all it can be used for. We can't go further down the line in 10 years from now and say we want a campground there and we've got all this infrastructure there. Why can't we have a campground? Can you make an exception?
The point about it is every time you get into any kind of amendment, it may be rezoned for an institutional use. There's nothing stopping somebody to ask later, can I rezone and do a change to the land use bylaw again? But you have to go through the full process. But you have to go through the full process of what we're into today. And every other amendment follows the same type of process.
Thank you.
But there is a full gamut of things that can go on that property.
Yeah, for institutional.
So, some more detail on the shower and washroom facility. And that's being the outside with the elevations. And this will give you an example of how it's broken up. It will be required to be hooked to municipal water and sewer, which, as I say, is a requirement set out in the policies in the municipal plan that it must be serviced by municipal water and sewer. Okay. And to read all that stuff, you have that in your package, as opposed to trying to get little details there. In terms of a summary, it is very difficult for Cheryl and I to overlap things. A site plan with a boundary map, with a picture and those sorts of things. There's all kinds of stretching errors and those kinds of things. What we do know is, according to what Property Online shows, Property Online, as a reminder, is a graphic representation. Unless the property was surveyed, it is not the be-all to end-all to it. The way the applicant has portrayed the property is slightly wider. I have every reason to believe that when you read the deed description, it sounds more like a rectangular shape than where it narrows the way that Property Online has it. So it adds a little bit more, but it mostly just widens the OS zone, okay? A couple of things that, and as I said, because of these stretching areas and those sorts of things, it's difficult for us to absolutely ascertain, but when we overlap things, we see a couple of tents and a yoga dining area maybe within that boundary line of that 6 meter O2 zone. It may not be. There is stretching errors and those kinds of things that we have to deal with. In your municipal plan and your land use bylaw, there is a requirement that
there'd be a permit for every single structure, not as a group. There would be a permit for every structure to be located. If these ones, for example, are difficult for us to do, the plan itself and the land use bylaw allows us to have a Nova Scotia land surveyor actually cite that to ensure that it's not located in the O2 zone. That's a safety and precaution that's built in there. It may not be. It may be. I can't definitively say that because I can't overlay all those nice pictures, the site plan that was hand-drawn, and those sorts of things. I can't do it. It could be done if there was a survey plan first, but this is what you have is a scale drawing. So that is the resolution. And as I said, when there is additional information later, building permits, development permits, additional information will be required specific to those types of things. And again, just to reiterate, this line here is the line that talks about where the O2 zone shows up. So you can get to see it a little bit more, but it's pretty clear where it starts and how it wraps up. And as I said, that boundary line is probably a little more straighter here. And that's it for me.
So looking at that, not the last picture, the picture beforehand, which puts how many tents in, 2 tents in the yoga, they would have to be moved.
If our calculations, yes, that's exactly right, because the O2 does not allow the construction of those things there. But I'll reiterate again, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, but so to be fair, so that the applicant knows as well, she would, what would they have to do?
They would have to, as it says right here, I could implement that requirement to say if it's that crunched in there and stuff like this, I could require the proper surveyor draft the whole thing, overlay the zone boundaries and everything else with it in a surveyed location, and I would get an absolute based on a Nova Scotia land surveyor opinion.
And the question to that was, who would pay for that?
The applicant would have to pay for that. It would be part of a requirement of submission of a development permit. Development permit, it's only used in those circumstances where the development officer cannot ascertain its location, where these ones appear to be so close, unless everything was shifted so much up this way that it would be very clear to me I wouldn't have to invoke that clause. But based on what I see, I may have to invoke that clause.
Which would, and that's what I wanted to make sure. But if the 2 tents on the bottom were put together side by side, all 4 tents put together, and move the yoga into an over, it would all fit in, and then it would be a different scenario. You would have to call upon the surveyor.
That's right.
So Albert, regarding the development permit, I know one of the neighbors were having an issue, slight lines and whatnot. What does the development permit entail? Would that be helpful in this application, or is that a separate application? I don't quite understand.
Development permit is only issued after, it's essentially there to confirm the zoning. Development permits are not even going to be looked at, talked about, even considered in the room unless a rezoning went through first.
Okay.
It has to be that way.
Thank you.
And thank you for making that clear. So that's not a prerequisite for the decision made by this body. In fact, it can't be a prerequisite for this body.
There's actually a reservation that the development officer has that authority.
But it's something that could be taken into consideration after if it's rezoned?
It's something that I would have to make that determination if I couldn't absolutely say that it wasn't in the open zone.
Councillor Henry.
This is kind of a stupid question, but who draws in the O2 line there, the dotted line?
Yep. Who's sitting right behind you? But the detail.
That's what I was.
I don't have a stupid answer.
Well, get one. But, and I assume that was.
But it's based on provincial mapping of a determined 6-meter contour.
Right. So someone knows exactly where that line is on the property.
And the way it works is written in every land use bylaw that what it says is that if there's any discrepancy, it is measured directly from the zoning map. So the zoning map is the be-all, the end-all in this case. So when an applicant puts in something, we go right into the zoning map, and the zoning map is the absolute, this is where that boundary line is.
So the zoning map can tell me exactly where that line is.
It is scaled, in the last case of scenario, it can be scaled from that. But as I said, that's why the reservation is there, is that the development officer can ask the applicant to give me a Nova Scotia Land Surveyor drawing to absolutely tell me that they are not in that O2 zone.
I understand. I have trouble with that, with who's responsible for that. But so that's one question. Besides who marks the line, is the determinant of that O2 zone. Is there any part of that that's that elevation becomes
It's
criteria?
a 6-meter elevation.
A 6 meter?
6-meter absolute defined elevation.
Okay.
Right? But the thing that always to remember, no matter what you do when you get into these types of things, when you make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, there's always going to be margins of error. That's why I say the last line of good information is a requirement for a surveyor. Because the surveyor has to be absolute in their determination. It can't be a hand-drawn sketch given to the development officer that's based on a photo that I use, which is based off something that came somewhere else. That's why it's a reservation. I've only used it once before in the entirety of working in Annapolis County. Because at that time, it was just too darn close for me to tell where the development was going. And they had to have a Nova Scotia Land Surveyor. It's not something that I use on a regular basis, and I want to be clear on that. But this one is kind of close there. So.
And my follow-up question is, if that becomes an issue, that it needs to be moved closer to the main residence, my question to the applicant would be, is that a game changer? If that has to happen, is the project dead? Or is it possible to move that 5 feet, 10 feet, whatever that surveyor says, here's the line?
Yeah.
Because if that's a deal breaker, that's a deal breaker. If it's still a possibility, what that means to me is the applicant has to expend more money at this point.
Right. It could mean as well a different layout. You have this vacant area up there.
Yeah, that's something that.
Something like that would not need to be confirmed with survey because it's obviously so far away.
Well, so I guess where I'm driving at is that may be a solution to move that point where it no longer becomes necessary to hire. I don't know what a surveyor would cost. I have no idea. But that would be, I would think, a substantial cost to do that. And it may not be required. If it's just an observation out on the land, you can say, well, you're probably close. If you move it 25 feet this direction, then we're okay. That seems to be a good approach as opposed to keep pounding away at it.
If that happens, does the application need to be amended in that case in order to be considered by council?
I think I want to say, for lack of better words, don't get married to the site plan.
Right.
The issue is the use, not the location of where it is.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Gunn. Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Warden, then Councillor Gunn. My apologies.
Well, the traffic study, I mean, they're only saying 3 additional cars is going to go in that driveway all day long, only 3 more cars than what's already gone in there.
Because I believe the clients can't have cars there because they'll primarily be flown in and shuttled into the site, so they won't have their own vehicles. So just the people who'd be working would be in there at the driveway.
What about the people that are going to have supplies to them? They'll need supplies. And my other question is, when I was looking under fire regulations, how are they going to hardwire fire detectors in tanks?
There would have to be power.
Is that what I understand?
Yeah, and if you notice in the application, it said that there will be hardwire going there because there will be heaters and 2 electric plugs going into each tent. The applicant will put that in their information as well. Yeah.
So that resolves the issue of how you hardwire any of the fire alarms.
And my other problem is I'm concerned with the rezoning of this could lead to something else down the road. And it's close to neighbors. My understanding is that there is concern with neighbors that live there. And I don't know, I always felt sitting on a PAC committee is my job was try to reduce conflict and make things work in the community. And I kind of don't see this. I mean, it's a good idea. It is a good idea, but I do not think that this is the proper place for it.
Councilor McNeil.
I have to agree too. I mean, I'm not too concerned as far as what the Shells are proposing here. My big dilemma is if the property had to sell, is what can go on that property. From the list that was there's quite a variety of stuff. And I guess that's where I have the issue is what can go there. That's my problem with
it. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you. That would be my question as to what could possibly come down the road, and really what the neighbors think. I mean, if I was the guy that owned the house, and I'm not, but the fellow that lives next door in either direction, what are their concerns and the people across the street? That's my biggest concern about it. And in the 10 years down the line, if somebody buys that property, will that carry on so that something else can be put in there? Hence, campground.
Institution.
Yeah, it couldn't be a campground. It couldn't be. It would have to be one of the things on the
maybe a Bible camp or something, I don't know. But whatever.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Henry.
Yeah, I've seen nothing that changes my original thought on this. Is I see nothing that would prohibit this from going to a public hearing. I think Councilor Gunn said an interesting thing, that if he was the neighbor, he would object to that, but he's not the neighbor. I think that's the importance of a public hearing, to get this input of people who are neighbors. I mean, this got through the area advisory, the Bridgetown planning area. So there was enough merit in it to move it to the PAC. The PAC moved it one step further. For me, what my insistence is letting the public getting enough information to let the public really have a chance to talk about it. I mean, I've only heard 2 people raised objection to it because there were only 2 maybe 3 at that meeting. That doesn't give me enough information to read how the public really feels about this particular operation on that particular piece of ground. So I think my role is to ensure that there's nothing obvious. If it's not obvious, get it to the people who live there and let us know. So I see nothing that changes my get this to a public hearing. The people who are proposing this have jumped through a lot of hoops and have met them all so far, so that's encouraging to me. So I just want to hear what the public feels about this.
Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, I just want to say that I've only heard of the one complaint that was at the meeting, and I've heard nothing since. So I am around Bridgetown a lot, and I just ain't hearing it. So I'm not going to change my mind on this issue.
Thank you. I think that something that was said by the deputy warden is really significant. The whole planning process is absolutely about conflict mitigation as opposed to resolution, because you will always have competing interests within a community. You'll always have one person's interests that may potentially cause some friction with the person who's adjacent. The planning process is designed as a mechanism to let you negotiate your way through those things, as opposed to the planning process I don't think is designed to preclude that conversation. It's designed to facilitate it and make it smoother and give it a process that's predictable. And Councillor Gunn, when he stated that the neighbors' opinions matter, and I certainly agree with that, and that's partly why my feelings are very similar to those of Councillor Hemming. That to me, our responsibility for the next step is to make a decision on whether or not to bring this to the community. I haven't seen anything at this point that would raise an objection for me that would preclude bringing this to the community. I think this should be brought to the community. That's my perspective. Councillor Schick.
I would like to hear what the community has to say. I'd like to keep an open mind on this. I mean, I'm sitting on the fence. I don't know which way to go, so I'd like to hear more information from what they
Councillor Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
And I also agree, I'd like to hear what the community has to say. However, I'll put that in there. If this plan is presented, and that's not what it looks like at all at the end, because of that, what did you call that line?
Contour line.
Will cause a problem with the placement of tents, then are we realistically presenting, or somebody, to the community what it really is going to be looking like, or where they're actually going to be put at? Like, these tents are not going to be there, they're going to be over here maybe. Well, if we're doing maybes, maybe we should have the answers before we maybe, so that they have the answers. Because if we go in, like if I went into a community and said, okay, this is what it looks like. Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe I'll have to move my shed over there, and it's going to be like 8 sheds besides your, but in this case, I'm talking about myself. I'll have 8 sheds besides your property line. That's not what I presented, then it's kind of difficult for me to. I don't know if you know what I'm saying.
No, I think I'm following what you're saying. I know that Albert wants to comment on it, so I'm interested to hear what his response is.
Dancing on the spot there?
No money hurts.
I'll do a little dance. I know how to hurt it. That's my only problem with this process.
Mr. Albert, did you want to comment on that?
Yes. There's a couple of points I'm going to go back to again. When we get into a process like this, the first arbitration has to be what does the municipal plan and vis-a-vis its land use bylaws say before it is a neighbor thing. Okay?
Okay.
That's the first thing. You have an issue here where you're talking about a commercial type of development to be within an institutional zone. And the first part, as I said, policy 23 point, I forget the rest of the numbers, in the previous information that's been passed out, gives you that stuff that you evaluated against. There is strength in every argument in this one about, yes, some institutional uses could be allowed. Yes, there is some strength that says the residential zone has to be protected, and we can look at things like council's goal for residential, for example, to assist the provision of a variety of living environments for the people of the town, which are compatible with the existing pattern. Then it goes into the objectives, the protection and maintenance of existing residential areas, long-range planning and management of future residential areas, planning and servicing new residential areas in cooperation. You have a tough choice. You have to arbitrate which is stronger here. allowing an institutional or protecting a residential, because both of them carry the same kind of weight in here. But the main thing that it means is, council, when we look at a process like this, the first part of that process is council is the only one who makes the decision. Council, if they felt that the policies were strong enough at the first, council has the authority to say no and not send it through the process. So far, we've sent it through a process. We're at the stage right now of saying, okay, you still haven't made you still have council next week has the authority to make the decision and say no. Council next week has the decision to say, let's keep it going and let's send it to the public hearing, and then I will put off my decision until after the public hearing. Those are your choices. Okay? The other thing that it comes down to with this, and I have to stress and reiterate, why I keep saying don't get married to one thing, because inherent in a rezoning means any other use. If you approve it, every other use is permitted within that part. I will reiterate the same things that I've said on this one previously. It can be intensified with 9 tenths, 10 tenths, 11 tenths. That is the gamble that you have to make when you're adjudicating these types of things. If the space is there, if the business is popular, if you rezone, you're not married to 8 tenths. The applicant has proposed something at 8 tenths. But if there's room for more, then there is room for more, and they will be given that permission to expand without coming back to council. Because that is inherent in a rezoning process. That's all I want to say.
So, yeah, I just want a question. The O2 conservation area, that really can't be determined. So what process does an applicant have in this regard, in the sense that are they required to spend money on that survey before they know the use is approved? Or is it, or?
The answer was twofold there, John. One, council asked for a, when they asked for additional information, they had asked for a 2-scale site plan. That 2-scale site plan could be based on a survey drawing. We might not be having this discussion if that was the case, but you have a 2-scale site plan hand drawn. All I'm saying is that depending on the rezoning, we don't even talk about that O2 zone. We don't talk about those locations. All I'm saying is if it's too close to call, that the development officer reserves that authority to say, no, I can't tell if you're in the O2 zone or not.
So when it comes to site, every single one of those buildings by permit, if you believe it's too hard to determine, you would say that you're not going to approve that building in that area.
And I would do that if it crossed the property boundary. I would do that if it came up close to the 50 feet. I would do that for every aspect of the development.
Okay, so just, I'm trying to separate how close you have to be to that O2 conservation area from the actual use. And so as a development officer, even after the fact, regardless of the site plan, you still are going to be having permits on site to confirm it is within those areas.
Absolutely.
And at that point in time, the applicant, if they want to put it there, if it's a close call, they would have to get the survey. Right. Okay.
So just to make sure that's clear, it means that figuring out this stuff is not a prerequisite for this decision at all. That will be done in the course. All those determinations will be made in the course of the development if the development's permitted to go forward, because our office, our planning office, is not going to permit something to be on the wrong side of a line. So we know that that's there. That's something that will be dealt with, but that has nothing to do with the decision that we have to make right now.
No, and to put it in case, of the 300 and some odd permits, or building permits, every single time we do this for every single one. So Russell just came in. When he is reviewing a building permit, he has to ensure that it's not crossing a property boundary, as an example.
Or a use boundary.
Well, the zoning officer does the use boundary stuff, the zoning boundaries. But he has to look at setbacks from another building. He has to review all this kind of stuff. This is normal, commonplace stuff for us.
Councillor Sheridan?
So regarding additional tents, is there a restriction on how close the platforms have to be? Like if they're applying for a permit, do they have to apply for a permit to put additional tents? Because I was just wondering how many could be possible to be put in there.
Depends on the size of the tent.
But
There is the separation distance is something that a building permit might have to say as to how far they are separated apart. Your land use bylaw does not give that.
Every structure is, the distance from another structure is based on what it's constructed from, whether it's a brick building, a steel building, or a wood building. So that obviously the wooden buildings, there's further distances between them. And so on, but
Because of the burn factor.
that's right. So you're generally looking at 4 feet from a property boundary to a residential accommodation. Okay, so you can get to within 4 feet, but that depends on the number of windows and doors you have in the wall and so on.
And on how close the building is on the adjacent property.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. For my purpose, everything goes from the property boundary to that building. Okay? And on the other property, it would be from the same boundary back to their structures. Okay?
so in regards to 2 tents, how close could the 2 tents be? Like they're
Probably about 8 feet would be the closest they would.
distance between the 2 tents on all 4 sides?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, not to confuse the matter, but let's say you're 4 feet from the property line and the other individual's 4 feet from the property line. What's the safe distance between the 2 buildings if they have the same type of siding? If the siding is not deemed to be enough within that distance, do they have to put on different siding?
Absolutely, yeah. And numbers of windows, the area size of the windows may have to be reduced or they could be increased based on your setback.
So you have to improve the burn time.
Right. Thank
So
you.
that's why I have to see elevational drawings of every building so that when I'm looking at that elevation facing this property boundary here, I can see that how many square feet of window space, how many square feet of wall space there is there. And the chart that I follow tells me the distance I have to be back.
Yeah. That's why I said a lot of this stuff will be required with the building permits or the development permits and stuff like that. Those safety factors are covered. The one other point I wanted to clarify, when we look at that O2 zone boundary, or where we say 50 feet up there, that's the residential interface boundary. You can come up to it, but you cannot cross it. So that's how it works. It's not like a 10-foot back from it or anything. You're just not allowed to be within the O2 boundary, period.
Further discussion or questions, folks?
How much expenses the applicant gone through to get to this part? You know, I mean, be absolutely none of my business, but I'm 95% sure I don't think it belongs in a residential zone where, to me, where if they went 300 yards to the west where there is no zoning, that none of this is necessary, right? Once they're outside the town boundary, there is no zoning.
I think it's more than 300 yards, but
okay, 500 yards. It's not very far.
Yeah.
But it will be. Yeah. But that's later.
But it isn't there today. And this is a lot. This is a big dice roll for an individual, and it may not be any of my. But I feel sympathetic that the applicant's going through an awful lot for something that may not work out in her favor. And I sympathize.
Yes. In the municipal plan, there is criteria set out as to what an applicant must provide and what you require to evaluate an application. It's very clear. If you require additional information that's in that list, then the applicant must provide it. It's a matter about council to come to a decision that council is comfortable with and council followed the letter of the law. When council doesn't, and I'll reiterate that, that's what the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board process is afterwards. An approval by council in this case is appealable. A denial by council is appealable. And council will be put to task in saying The Utility Review Board has to look at it and say, did council make a reasonable decision based first and foremost on the policies, objectives, goals of that municipal plan? That's what the Utility Review Board looks at. Josh?
Councillor Gunn, had you a comment as well?
Yeah, my question was just going to be whether these tents were fireproof, fire rated or not.
Okay.
Are they fire rated?
It'd be 45-minute rated assembly on the fabric.
45 minutes.
Yeah, same as any residential home.
Thank you.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. This has been an interesting and exhilarating discussion. And I would very much like this to move on to the public meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion, folks? So Councillor
I was just going to say, Councillor Sheridan, I'm on the fence here, but I would feel comfortable moving it ahead to a public meeting.
So first reading.
All right, so if we were to make a motion on this, the motion would be I move to recommend the municipal council give first reading of their intent to amend the Bridgetown Land Use Bylaw LUB zoning map to rezone that portion of the Stephen and Carrie Shell property, PID number 05150610, commencing 50 feet south of the existing residential dwelling at 98 Granville Street and running to the conservation or O2 zone from the residential light density to the institutional, to permit the development of a portion of that property as a women's mental health and alcohol treatment center, and to hold a statutory public hearing on, and we'd have to determine a date, in the council chambers of Annapolis Committee of the Whole. A council committee, that's right.
11 o'clock in council chambers. Normally,
Yes, council. And Mr. Warden, there was one thing I did have a look at. If council makes a decision next week, the timeline is like 2 days before the council session at a minimum. So you might as well think on March council session at 11 o'clock as being the date for the public hearing, which is what a consistent is, because you're only 2 days. You got a 2-day period before to meet the advertising requirements and the 14-day consecutive periods.
Okay, all right. So we'd be looking at our next council meeting.
That would be preferable.
Council or committee of the whole?
Council.
Whatever day March.
Councillor Hemming.
I would make that motion.
So that's been moved by Councillor Hemming. Seconder for the motion. Seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion on the motion. Deputy Warden.
Well, and I just want to make myself clear. I mean, I'm interested in moving it to the next level to get more information and input of the public. So, I mean, I kind of don't like the word intent to pass, because that is my perspective on it, is I'm looking for more information from the public and to move it forward to get that information.
Understood. Thank you for that caveat. All right, further discussion.
You're just going to comment on the intent. I believe the solicitor answered it about a year or so ago when it said that it has to be the use of the word intent. You're advertising your council's intent to adopt it. Council hasn't made a decision until after the public hearing. But what it meant then, that intent word locks things in a little bit, okay? And what it means is that when we go into the public hearing, what's being presented is what's being presented. It doesn't mean a guarantee that they can't add more tents or anything else, but what we're talking about is, in good faith, council has reviewed this application, seen these site plans, and that's what you're voting on. But keeping in mind all the rest of the policies in the municipal plan and stuff like that. So, but what it does is that we can make a minor change. So if a minor change meant like moving one tent further ahead, that's pretty minor. But if it's doing something like adding 7 more tents, well, that's pretty major. That go back to square one because that wasn't in your intent. So it locks in intent is what it's doing.
Further discussion, folks? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So I'm counting 3 nays. So the motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Recording and take care of it.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. So that means that the public hearing will be held at our next council meeting in March.
March 17th.
March 17th, 11 o'clock. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Gina, let's take 5 minutes and stretch. All right. Hello, everybody. We're continuing on with new business. Yes, Deputy Warden.
I would like to change the order of the day with a late addition. We added Nova Scotia Power easement.
Seconder. Seconder for motion. Seconded by Councillor Prout. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Just for at the end of late edition there, I have one, but it's King's Transit. It's in regards to
There were reports.
middle, is it up there? The units?
Right.
And I just was approached on it.
I think we've got King's Transit in the agenda under 8A.
I see that, yeah.
So that would be a good opportunity to visit that.
Good, thank you.
All right. Did we? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I would suggest to the committee that as we're already running late and we do have a number of things to be dealt with, including one additional in-camera item, that it might be advisable to move. Why don't we simply shift all the departmental reports in that case to Thursday to a special meeting committee of the whole, and I think that'll simplify things because at least two of those items will require some significant council attention, and I don't know about all the rest of you, but my attention starts to fray at a certain point in the meeting.
I'd make that a motion, if you require one, that we hold a special council on special committee of the whole Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
To complete what we don't get done today.
Sure. Seconded by the Deputy Warden. Discussion of the motion.
I don't think I'll be here for that.
Okay.
That's okay.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the request for decision on the sewer charge. Deputy Warden.
Thursday at 1. 76.
The Committee of the Whole recommend to Municipal Council an increase to the 2020-2021 sewer charge by 2.3% cost of living. The annual charge would increase from $539.22 for 2019-20 to $551.44. This is an increase of $12.22 for the year.
Seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion of the motion.
It's going to be discussion, but...
Oh, sorry. Then Councillor Sheridan.
So in regards to the increase, I'm happy to see that it's $12.22 because for the past 2 or 3 years, I've been here arguing that it shouldn't have increased as high as it did. So I'm willing to accept the $12.22. So I'd like to see it.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Marcel.
What she said. Yes.
Thanks very much. All right. And I just comment that I don't think it was ever the intention of council to have increases regularly. It's just we had to adjust to where the auditors really said we needed to be. And that was like pulling off a Band-Aid. It hurt a lot, but I don't think we have to do it again.
No, and it was quite a large increase. I can't even tell you how many calls I had last year.
Not all surprised.
I did tell them even, it would have to be a gradual increase, and that's what I was hoping that we would be able to see. So a $12 increase to me is reasonable.
All right. All in favor? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Curbside collection schedule changes. And that's on page 83. So this is about kind of Annapolis moving to a 4-day curbside collection schedule from a 5-day. And part of the intention of this, I believe, is to streamline operations, to reduce the possibility of having to do Saturday collections on when there's been a holiday in the area as well, and just to be a bit more efficient. Thoughts, folks?
I think it's clever. Do we have a plan to make sure that there are no bumps in the for March 31st on how everybody's going to receive this information? I'm sure we do. But.
Steve?
Yeah, we'll be communicating and guaranteeing there's no bumps. No. It is, when we change
we're getting a lot of calls when we have our waste hotline.
Yes.
And people demand the staff on that one. So when we answer, we'll be able to answer the public questions. But we will, as the memo says, advertising and mail out, change the schedules.
That'll minimize the bump, so maybe that was a better wording. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor McNeil.
I can't think we're going to save any money on this. Actually, I think we're going to be probably more money than we're spending now.
By condensing to 4 days. To 4 days from 5 days?
Well, you're going to have to double the trucks on the fourth day or double the trucks every day.
No, they how they operate now, they in a 2-week schedule, instead of working 10 days, they only work 9 right now. So they only work 4 days one of the weeks right now. So they may basically maybe extend the hour of the day or something of that nature, but it shouldn't mean that they... Go ahead, Steve.
I think also one of the goals is to kind of balance the loads in terms of the pickup routes, so that the trucks carry as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
So, because some of the routes right now, you've done your route, so
it's half a load.
You haven't got a whole lot of waste in the truck. Yeah. So it's to economize the volume, pick up the volume.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
Well, and that's kind of what when I read through it, I was kind of looking for was what this would save in the long run, and I didn't see it.
Do we have a sense of that, Steve?
No, I can't comment on that, but we'll be ready to comment on it next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fowler.
I don't think people adapt to the change very easily. I think it's been better, and for what save, I don't think there'll be that much to save neither. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Further comments or discussion? Councillor Sherry.
So this will cut down on the trucks going to the new transfer station, right? Like it will be
fuller loads.
Fuller loads the less day. Like more.
What it also
days.
prevents is they right now, if they miss, they have to haul on a Saturday.
Right.
So now this way here, they would just usually the holidays occur on Monday. So now they can capture it within the week without having to work Saturdays.
So Tuesday there'd be no trucks going to the transfer, or Monday there'd be no trucks going to the transfer station whatsoever for that use. Okay.
The intent to have the building open, or the site open, but the residual collection would not be occurring. It's still a C&D site.
Councillor Gunn, you look like you got a question percolating.
Oh, there's one there, but I'm going to hold on to it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, folks? Deputy Warden.
I was going to say, just as an aside, probably 20 years ago, a couple of us did some work for the Kings County School Board. The prices of heating were going up, gasoline, the whole thing. And sort of not on the slide, but sort of behind the scenes, they wanted some information on the 4-day school week. What would be the advantages there? Unfortunately, I thought for the time, the optics just wouldn't fly. You know, all those lazy teachers taking Fridays off and blah, blah, blah. But the savings were there. I mean, there were economies of scale that you could easily point to. And I would say hopefully so the case would be here.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden.
Well, and my concern is what we're going to save and how smooth this is going to run, because a lot of the changes is in my district. And it's like I said, when I read, I was looking for where this is it going to save us money and where it's going to save us money. And so I would have a good understanding of why we're doing this, so when I'm asked, I have an explanation.
I think Steve indicated he can have those numbers for us for next week's council meeting. Yes.
I would also think that because at the end of the day, we truck everything we've collected at the transfer station, that we'd be less tempted to hang on to it overnight. right? Because we'll have more likely have a full load as opposed to a 2/3 of a load. And I would think that would be part of the reasoning behind it as well. It might save a couple of long hauls, right, to the other end.
Absolutely. Okay. Further discussion on this?
Well, Kings County's doing that. They're starting. So Kings County's doing it as well.
So do we have a recommended motion for this?
CFR, they're making the suggestions to us and to them.
That's what I want.
They'll have a business case for that, yeah.
Steve? Okay. Councillor Henry?
Yeah, I'd like to support this contingent on some numbers that Steve could bring back to us. So I have some justification. It didn't have to be exactly some justification, but there is cost savings, and this is what it is.
All right. So this is just presented for council's information, so we don't need to vote on this, but Steve will bring back some numbers next week, and we can have a discussion about it then.
Okay.
All right. Let's go on to the next item in that case. Is that fair?
Yeah, and so the quick answer is that we would save on transfer 1 day a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have to know, because if you're going to have to put them on longer days.
Bigger loads. Depending on which area it is.
Right, but if you're hauling in and you're transferring 5 days a week and then you reduce the transfer 1 day a week, the cost associated with transferring on site would be less.
Still think it's going to require more trucks.
More trucks collecting curbside or more trucks hauling?
Yeah, collecting curbside.
It doesn't matter. They're a fixed price.
Still not village.
They're doing it to save on their end in terms of how many staff they have on any given day.
So we have a fixed price for going to West Hands?
No, that's why I asked.
Fixed price on curbside.
Fixed price. Less trucks on the curbside or less trucks going to the land? What's your question?
No. My question wasn't a question. It was like a thought that there would be more trucks required to do it anyway.
No, not with the volumes that we know we're having right now.
Not big to differ with, but some of those areas are fairly big, so it's, wait and see, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I can't see how to.
All right. Well, let's go on to our next item. Of course, as anyone with access to the internet or a television or a radio is fully aware, the coronavirus continues to develop at an exponential pace in China. We have a friendship city agreement with the city of Chuzhou, and we have a friendship city agreement that's being developed with the city of Shushen. The city of Shushen is located about 800 kilometers from the heart of where the infection has actually begun. To my knowledge, there are not many cases reported in Shushen right now, but of course the impact that this has had on those communities, it's really ground a lot of communities almost to a complete standstill in China. Representatives from the city of Shushen reached out to us because we're one of their friendship cities with a plea that the municipality do whatever it could to locate masks to send over, particularly for children, because the children who are attending school, it's one of the layers of safety that's being required, and it's they're in difficult straits right now. There's an actual shortage of masks right around the world. So this was a request that was conveyed to council. It was conveyed with a certain degree of urgency because shelves were being stripped bare right across the Western world. So we conducted a phone poll with those councillors who were available just to get their sense of it, with the understanding that anything that was done would have to be ratified by council afterwards. The position that was arrived at by those folks who were involved in the phone poll was to approve a small gift portion, and the bulk. And the Shushen had anticipated reimbursing us for expenses, but to approve a gift of about $1,000 worth of masks with a loan of about $5,000 worth, which would be reimbursed by the city of Shushen. So that was what was approved. That was pending, of course, council's actual ratification. The process of actually sourcing has been incredibly laborious. So I spent at least 3 full days, almost 10 hours each day contacting companies back and forth across Canada. I've talked to vice presidents from 3M, and I've spoken to vice presidents from Home Hardware and a number of different construction chains. I had initially managed to acquire about 3,000 dust masks, which aren't as good as medical masks, but at least they're better than nothing, from Home Depot. And the day that they were due to arrive, I was contacted by Home Depot in an email saying they had canceled my order. And even though they maintain live inventory in their warehouses, and this is not an item that ever is stocked in their stores, apparently the boxes that we had acquired ceased to exist at some point between when they were purchased and when they were actually shipped. We were able to obtain about 2,200 medical masks from a supplier in Quebec. Those are en route right now, so I know that the delivery is pending for probably tomorrow or the next day. I was also able to the other place where we were successful eventually was with Home Hardware. So I managed to get a few hundred masks just off shelves of Home Hardwares that were around. In the course of doing that, I had a lot of conversations with individual employees at different stores. And they said a lot of them noticed the pattern of masks disappearing before they put it together what it was about. And a lot of people are hoarding, right? And there's a lot of people who are also speculating on these things. I know that a product that Walmart had on their website for a long time, that they're very simple dust masks that used to sell for about $10 for a package. It's now $100 for a 10-pack through Walmart. So speculation happens even at the corporate level, which I always think is kind of shocking. In any event, Home Hardware is attempting to source an additional about 1,800 dust masks for us, in addition to the 300 that I have. So that's where it says I don't think we're going to get anywhere close to the amounts that Council approved for the spending for the loan portion, just because they don't exist anymore. As I think we've. I talked to a VP at 3M, and the VP told me that at the moment, other than core medical facilities in Canada, which have fixed contracts that must always be served because you can't leave Canadian hospitals in the lurch, that every available spare mask is already being shipped to China. So barring what was existing on shelves, you're just not going to find anything else at this point. But I thought it was, and bear in mind, of course, the scale. We're a municipality with 20,000 people. The city of Sushan, they're just trying to beat the bushes to get every last bit of help to keep as many citizens protected as they possibly can. But they've got 11 million people. So what we do, anything that we're able to accomplish is always by way of a gesture as much as anything else. But it's an important gesture, especially with a municipality that signed a friendship agreement with us. So that's where we stand at the moment. And what I'd like to request, do you have Trevor recommended wording for us? It actually is here. To recommend the Municipal Council authorize, in response to a plea from our sister city in China, a $1,000 purchase of masks as a gift and up to $5,000 purchase of masks with cost to be reimbursed. Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Hemming. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. So when you listen to a lot of the CBC reporting and people from the World Health, and that they say one of the biggest problems they're having in China now is a lot of aid is going to places that don't need aid. In other words, there's a lot of small cities in China, several millions of people, that are getting masks brought in by the container load so that their people have masks. But the outbreak is not there in that area. So there's a lot of resources being misdirected through it all. When I think that if a pandemic ever came to Canada, I would hope that our safety and our nurturing wouldn't depend on masks from the hospital or anywhere else, that our citizens would be made aware that probably rags and home and a bit of sensible cleanliness will take care of a lot of this. I can't believe that in China, where they make a lot of these masks, and such that they haven't, they built a hospital to treat people from this too in 10 days or something like that. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal what China can accomplish. I can't believe that they can accomplish building masks that quick and getting them to where they need them. I'm all for giving them some sort of, token gesture, but really we will not solve their problem. We'd be better off to send them over probably a couple of containers full of Javex, just so that, they can put that out there and people can, sanitize themselves before they go in their houses, and cloths and one thing and another. As it comes to this country and we have a pandemic like that, I would hope that we wouldn't depend on the drugstore or the home hardware store to supply us with dust masks so that it carries on. I hope we look beyond that simple Band-Aid approach.
Thank you. And there is, of course, an irony, an unpleasant irony to this, and that is that the province that has been stricken by the coronavirus is the source of more than 80% of the medical masks that are produced in China, which amounts to more than 60% of the masks that are produced worldwide. So those factories are shut down because they're right in the epicenter. I think some businesses are slated to reopen on Thursday, and I believe those will be some of the businesses that will be reopening. But basically, places that supply the rest of the world have been put out of commission in the course of this. One of the things that's also a little tricky for North Americans, especially in an area as vast as Nova Scotia with a relatively small population, is you don't realize the impact that population density has on human contact. And when you're in a city of 11 million people that's physically small, if you're going to be doing anything in public whatsoever, you come in very, very close proximity to people constantly. You can't avoid it. We could isolate ourselves in our homes here fairly easily if we needed to, but it's not possible depending where you are elsewhere in the world. The masks are not a panacea. They're simply one tool in an arsenal. It boils down essentially to this. They've identified this as a need that's critical to their internal strategy. They're struggling. Sushen, unlike some of the communities in China that may be acquiring protective gear they don't really need, Sushen is close, like 800 kilometers away from the epicenter of the infection. So for them, this is a critical need. And when we're asked for help and we sign and we have a friendship agreement in place that indicates our goodwill, I think that doing what one can to answer a call for help is always a good thing. That's Deputy Warden.
So when these are sent, who are they sent to? Who's going to get these?
What's going to happen is when they're put together, Peter McClellan, who works very closely with David Wong, McClellan's going to collect all the masks and they're arranging the shipping themselves. So the stuff that's, I have some now, some's being delivered to my doorstep because it was easiest to have it come there. And then the stuff that I'd ordered through Home Hardware had to be ordered through local stores or else you'd want to be put in queue for back order and you'd never get it. But we're not doing any of the shipping. It's all being put directly in their hands and they're getting it across themselves.
But that still didn't answer my question.
Oh, sorry. Who's receiving it?
Yeah, is it going to like a medical clinic facility or?
It's going specifically to the city of Sushen. So the city of Sushen is.
There's a port.
David Wong. Yes.
There's a port that anything going to Shanghai may not get to where it's going to go because it may be delayed or stopped there. There's another port that allows it to go through. That's the address that they're putting it through. I forget the exact address, but it's their way of guaranteeing it gets to Sushen.
And I mean, my concern is taking tax dollars and giving it as gifts. That's why I'm concerned with that. I mean, because we have a lot of organizations in our own county that would love to have a gift. And that's my issue, is I don't believe that we should be taking tax dollars and giving them as gifts.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon.
I was just watching the news, and it did say that we are having a shortage around here, even for local hygienists and dentists and whatnot. So that does concern me. Also, it was on the same news broadcast. They had a specialist on there, and he said that it's not helpful to have these masks on because it's harboring the infection right here, and it's growing. And I'm kind of like, is it good for them to have it? It's kind of like being on that cruise ship. Is it good for all those people to be on that cruise ship with it all surrounding them? It's kind of like wearing a mask. Like,
It's my understanding that critics of the mask is using them correctly. There's even correct techniques for taking them off and on without necessarily contaminating your hands with what may be present in the mask. And of course, they're single-use masks, so they're disposables.
and you have to change them every so often. So the way
That's
he
right.
explained it, that if they're not being used right, being changed right, you're not helping the situation by using a mask. Basically, is what he was saying.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, and I wasn't on that phone conversation, sorry, but not being able to be there. So.
I think some people. It certainly has happened in the past with other illnesses that have moved through communities. That people have thought a mask will protect you, and they simply and absolutely won't. And I think that if there's any community in the world that's fully aware of that, it's China, which had SARS, right? So it's not a guarantee of protection. It's one of the tools, and when they're correctly used, and I'm certain they're drilling people in correct use. When they're correctly used, they do reduce the rates of infection. And the other particular use for the masks for the now nearly 40,000 people who are infected is that their best use is to prevent people who are infected from spreading it to other people, right? Because it's almost all droplet spray that passes the infection. So the people who have them are wearing that's particularly effective. Further thoughts, folks? Councillor Henry.
Yeah, I'm going to support this. The main reason when this came across my radar is this is not a China problem. This is a global problem. Last time I looked, we're part of the globe. So these pandemics and these diseases, they're going to spread everywhere. And I think on the phone call that we had, I think Councillor Fowler said it better than me, that the more we can stop it there, the better off we're going to be here in Nova Scotia. That's why I'm supporting it, because what we're doing there is helping us here.
That's right. I remember thinking at the same time that one comment is probably worth the whole rest of the discussion. I'd rather stop a pandemic there than have to fight it here. This isn't an issue of boundaries and gifts. This is an issue of a global effort by all people to try to prevent the spread of an organism which is potentially dangerous to all of us. And we certainly want to do that if we can. Councillor King.
How much have you spent?
I'd have to figure it out because of stuff being returned. But on the on dust masks, or sorry, the dust masks, I've spent about $700, I think, and the medical masks about $3,200. And I don't think we'll be able to spend any more. There's anything else to get.
So around 4,000. That's plus the 1,000 we're talking about.
Well, the 1,000 would be probably the dust mask portion of that.
So we're gifting up to 1,000, is that what you're
Up to 1,000.
And they are going to reimburse you.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying, oh, no, I guess the motion was never actually made. No, it wasn't made and seconded. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay, recorded, please.
Thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next up is minimum planning requirements. So this is the next bit of correspondence sent by the province to indicate the direction they're taking with this as it unfolds.
Just like to make a motion to receive it for information.
Motion received for information, seconded by Councillor McDonald. There's no discussion on the motion received for information. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Just for anyone who may be watching at home, there's no direction to municipalities to do anything at this point, but there's going to be more specific instructions coming, so it doesn't make sense to act on this just yet. And so the next one is audit committee training, and we need to. Oh, we've already done that. We've already selected the dates. We've moved departmental reports to Thursday. Council committee and organization reports, King's Transit, and this will be the opportunity for Councillor McNeil to discuss his concern as well. So we have a report. We have the extensive report in from King's Transit. We have a motion to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Discussion on the report. Councillor McNeil.
On the weekend, I was approached by a parent who has a special needs child at the Meadowwood. Meadowwood.
Okay.
Anyway.
Where?
Misty Meadow?
In Church Street.
Okay.
That
Meadows.
Yes.
The Meadows. That's the furthest one down.
Yeah.
The bus goes Monday to Friday and turns around there. These people have been asking King's Transit to have the bus go up there on Saturday, and King's Transit is turning them down. I went up the other day, and I parked at, this is a long day.
The Meadows.
No, I parked at Mount Lee Lodge. From Mount Lee Lodge to the Meadows is 0.7 of a kilometer. The biggest problem is, this time of year especially, is those persons having to walk from the Meadows on Saturday to Mount Lee Lodge to get a bus if they want to go to Greenwood, if they want to go to Kingston, Bowen, or wherever they want to go. 0.7 of a kilometer, not very much. And I can attest one other thing. When the traffic goes up Church Street, it's flying. And I've been guilty of that back in the 60s and 70s myself. But it's just too dangerous for those people at that institution there to have to walk down to Mount Lee Lodge on Saturday to get the bus. So it's only 0.7 of a kilometer up the road. And there's a full circle driveway. The bus, Monday to Friday, the bus goes around every Monday to Friday. But King's Transit is turning them down. Well, I'm suggesting it's our bus. And that we tell King's Transit, you can go there Saturday. Period.
Thank you very much for raising this. This is an important issue.
I don't understand that, because usually, if I may.
Yes, of course.
Because the route is the route. It's done every single day. Like, so it's Monday to Saturday, so I didn't know there was any changes at all.
Well, what was
on Saturday.
What was happening, apparently the change was made before, but the drivers were still sneaking up there with the bus to come around. And somebody got caught. So you will not go up there. As far as I'm concerned, it's our bus. You will go up there. Well, I mean, we're talking the safety of some of these kids and stuff, right? And that's just, to me, that's unacceptable.
Councillor Fowler? No, sorry. Councillor Gunn?
How do we get that straightened out?
Well, I think this is one, I believe that actually King's Transit has indicated to us in the past that if we as a municipality have requirements of the service, that we should send them those requirements and they'll attempt to accommodate what we request. This sounds to me like a fairly modest request to accommodate. I think what it would require is official correspondence to the municipality saying we would like to request that the Saturday route continue to turn around to the Meadows.
It's at the Meadows, is that what it's called?
I'm pretty sure it's just
Well, we can't just yet because there's one on the floor, but what I would suggest is, Eric, does anyone have any further questions on the report? Yes, Deputy Warden.
We had a discussion about the other buses, and I had a couple questions that I referred to CAO.
What other?
The buses, the refurbishing of the buses.
The Halifax one?
Yeah, the board.
I'm trying to remember what those questions were.
And you
I know
emailed them to...
Oh, and I copied everybody into his responses?
I
Is that the one?
I got the questions that you sent, but I didn't get any responses.
I'll have to look, and if I have them, I'll send them to you.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the report? In that case, all in favor of the motion to receive the report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor McNeil, would you like to make a motion for correspondence to be sent to King's Transit to request the extension of the Saturday route? Is that the east bus or the west bus?
West.
The west bus.
Oh, sorry, no. That probably is the east bus.
Or the east bus as far as the Meadows for the turnaround point.
Right. I'm just looking here to make sure that is the right one. See.
I can double check to make sure before we send the correspondence. Make sure it's the one that's the furthest north.
Willowvale. I think it's Willowvale.
Willowvale? Okay.
Just to continue the routes
And that's right,
Monday to Friday.
Yes.
That's right by our old compound.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. We have some our late additions. I believe there's a couple of motions the Deputy Warden has.
We have Kirk.
Southwest River Project is requesting $8,601.69 to assist with signage, E. coli sample analysis, and travel for the River Guardians water quality monitoring program.
Holly? Okay. All right. Could we have a motion to have this referred to the grants process? Moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Discussion of the motion. Deputy Warden.
Well, in my understanding was when she was doing the presentation, and maybe I understood wrong, that she is asking for money on top of the grant process. But she also explained it that it will be paying salaries. Staff. And I just recall of two other non-for-profit organizations that requested that, and we sent them on another route.
It's broken down, but it's a travel cost is what they're asking.
Yeah, that's right.
Signage,
There it is.
E. coli sample analysis, and travel.
13 sampling events and at times 8 sites. That's the bulk of it. The production of 8 new signs. That's the second largest portion. The travel costs of $1,000. So 4 quality control, quality assurance samples. Those are all. None of those are salaries. That's this itemized.
She told us she wasn't asking for something.
That's right.
Yeah.
She also mentioned that it was for the 2020-21 year, not the...
That's right. For the next fiscal year.
Also didn't qualify for the grant. Yeah.
For the grant program. Got it. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Next up, Deputy Ward.
Would be the bike race. I move that we accept the proposed bike race through Bridgetown from
June 7th.
June 7th of 2020.
Moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a quickie, exciting thing, and it's coming to our municipality, and who knows where it'll go. I think it's great.
Oh yeah, and it's awfully nice that a project comes to us that's already figured out. They've got a system. They've done success at other places. They just said, just say yes and smile. Okay,
It's really nice.
Does that need to go through the traffic authority for those roads?
That's how it got started. They went through the traffic authority because they're called temporary closures, so we work with them on that.
Okay.
But it appears in the presentation, he's notified on emergency people as everything else.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Deputy Warden.
And I move that we send the Hospital Foundation funding request to budget deliberations.
Moved to send a request to budget deliberation, seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Is that our last one, or is there one more?
There is one more.
Oh, yes, the easement.
And I move that we authorize the warden and the clerk to sign a Nova Scotia Power easement.
Seconded by Councillor Henry. Discussion on the motion.
Where is that?
It's for 2 power poles.
Yeah, okay. All right. Do it.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. And that's the end of late additions. We do have one further item to be discussed in camera. I'd like to request a motion to go in camera under MGA section 22.2F, solicitor advice, or items eligible for solicitor advice.
Okay.
Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Prout.
She could go move that. She jumped the gun.
Just get her done.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you back to the open portion of our Committee of the Whole meeting. I'd like to thank all of council and staff. I know today's been a very long meeting, but I know we've made a fair bit of progress. And we will be reconvening for the remainder of the agenda, which we didn't quite complete, on Thursday at 1 o'clock. So I look forward to seeing you then. And having said that, I will declare the meeting adjourned.